Hello all. This is yet another film commentary, and yeah, this will be a one-off despite going for a far more mainstream choice. And yeah, so I just thought, when the last time I could, I just wanted to offer my own perspective of the film because yeah, I feel like this film can be quite underrated at times. Like, granted, I think the likes of the Andor show would have helped. Um, improve this story more, especially with Cassian's character in that. Oh yeah, and just to clarify, this is recorded before Andor season 2. So something I've thought about is that um, maybe like once I've watched that show, I could like make a list of what it improves because it looks like the following season will do way more for yeah, for this film, because in the first and all season, we know more about him, his history, how he got out of prison once, how he got more involved with the rebellion, and some of the and more of the of how the Empire works. So yeah, it does not only does well for Rogue One, but starts in general. But regardless, so yeah, we're going to watch yeah, Rogue One, and yeah, like I said, just offer my own perspective. And if you're wondering, I don't have the like a motive for doing the rest of the Star Wars films. Maybe Episode 8 because I have a lot to say about this one because that one's like a really interesting case study. But other than that, I won't really know what to do with the other films, considering other people have already said a lot of things, and that we already know, and far better analysts out there. But anyway, I just thought and give Rogue One a bit more justice because yeah, I think this one's definitely a top tier one somewhere. But anyway, so we'll go on 00000, etc. And my phone's just charged us now. That's good. Right. So yeah, we'll. Sorry, the wire's in the way. It's my way actually. Okay. Yeah. Let's go in 3, 2, 1. Go. So it should. Oh, it's not in yet properly. There you go. Right, so now we should see a long time ago. And yeah, I don't mind this one having no title crawl, especially when the shows, some of the shows haven't done that anyway. Because I think up until this idea was no longer profitable, I bet the mindset was, if these are going to be side stories, then they might not be like big in scale enough to warrant a title crawl, which yeah, that I can understand because when we first watched this, we can definitely tell it's more later on. Takes place just before episode 4. Um, but yeah, so yeah, it is just a film this time. Giving us all the context we need because yeah, I don't have anything against the title crawl. I quite enjoy reading them. But to have a go with the films, like with a film laid down all the groundwork, it's like a one-off. Yeah, it's a bold move. So we already recognise that as an Empire ship, so we'll can see what this does for the others. And something else I quite like as well is that the daughter has been trained to be quite resourceful and very like focused on her goals, which you'll see later on. She immediately goes to, and yeah, if you know the cartoons, yeah, Saw is like an extension of the rebellion, or at least part of the rebellion, or the form of the rebellion, the start of it, something like that. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it's definitely part of how it started to first come about. Um, yeah, so to just clarify, what all of this is about, to um, just to make sure that their parents are always going to be around for her no matter what. And yeah, we'll see what her view of her parents are like later on, even if the dad is way more mentioned. And I remember some people thinking that maybe we should have had a like a day-to-day kind of thing before this kind of scene happens. Just seeing what on a normal day, what would the parents and Jim what would they be like before this moment comes about, because this could be seen as like a inciting incident kind of situation, but at the same time it can have introductory moments like that, which immediately explains what kind of what kind of problems about. And yeah, I can see why people would. I think you can still get a rough idea what the day-to-day routine is like, because as later on is explained, it looks like they do farm. Oh yeah, it is farming. Thanks for confirming that. So yeah, it is a. So we already have some idea, and not to mention, with the likes of the bunker, they're already prepared for a situation like this, and this is how it plays out. So, yeah, it's kind of quick at times, and it also takes its time a bit. And but once you pay attention, that's where it can be like, oh, okay, so this is what it's about. So yeah, both the mum and Jim would have left the house then, wouldn't they? Yeah. Also, when would have the dad had time to mention being married, unless that's something they've found out? It's like. Yeah. And what's also, what I also like about this is that it's been commented before about how Jin's dad kind of represents like a weird to say grey area, because I think he must have worked wondering it was for something purposeful, but once he finds out what the Death Star's been what it was really for, that's why he left. But now he's getting encouraged to go back in, so it's against his will, which yeah, so it adds more to the Empire's power. And yeah, and it just goes to show that not everyone's like for it. There's just a lot who have been hesitant and then know about the child as well. And yeah, he's trying to manipulate them by being like, oh, if you do this, then you'll be like respected in that. But yeah, I don't think they're falling for it. Yeah, I think they would probably just be locked up once the Death Star's like properly completed. Oh, good for her to try and shoot, but oh yeah, what a shame. Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd probably just go back to I think the performance and having some idea kind of like gets us to feel sorry about her a bit. But yeah, I think I can understand where people come from, where probably a bit more time we would feel a bit more sorry about the mum dying, and also just like more of an emphasis on how the dad really enjoys his lifestyle. Oh, we might want to duck a bit. Although if all of these guys are tall, then yeah, I think it looks like a gap that's hidden anyway. Anyway, yeah, so just probably like more of the dad enjoying his job, and then when they come about, you can really see how his life goes all downhill again. Because I reckon it was hard trying to leave the Empire at first, because he might have escaped, or he might have I don't know, like resigned only for him to be needed again, especially when he has great knowledge. Um, so yeah, but like even if we can see that difference, yeah, just more of an emphasis probably would have helped. And also thanks to contacting Saw earlier, he would know about this hidden area most likely. and she too would have been familiar with him too. Yeah, it looks like the coast is clear, and so off they go. So yeah, I think once their dad was taken, does that mean they gave up on looking for the kid then? I suppose the, will they've gone through the entire planet later on? I can see that happening. So now we've got a time jump. We do get some catch up on what happened in between. Although, oh yes, so the reason she's in prison, so a guy later on does explain what she has been charged for, so we can assume it's one of those crimes. So yeah, we can already tell that she's locked up. Yeah, I wonder how many different prison systems there are in Star Wars. I would imagine there's loads. Yeah, I like to just go by the films sometimes, even if there are like some bits and bobs from the extended stories which are interesting, but it's just a lot to gather, isn't it? Yeah, even made more confusing by how the extended universe gets decanonised. Trading outpost. So yeah, I think yeah, if the Empire was good for trading, which is confirmed in Mandalorian, etc., then we can see how this, it's probably like a planet that does well, but has a strong grip by the Empire some way, and you have those like Cassian right there, who, um, is doing a bit of a dodgy deal in this quite crowded planet. Well, I say crowded in its um, there you go. It's Jeff from Christmas at Mine or Yours. Jeddah. Oh yeah, that's the planet that the Death Star goes for in the end. All right. So, oh yeah, because the pilot was who we see later on. He was inspired by Jin's dad, wasn't he? And yeah, so he started the gossip. Okay. Galen, yeah, that's the name of the dad. Okay. Uh, yeah, I think the shoutings probably brought attention. I think they could have, yeah, because even if they were quiet, I think the stormtroopers would have been like probably to check the area and hear something over time. And we already get a good idea about how Cassian is has his own way of sorting out situations. Getting rid of the stormtroopers and then suddenly having to get rid of him, which yeah, because we can definitely see that he would be on the good side because if he's after news about a defector and what they're trying to do, um, then yeah, we can just assume that he just has um, I guess just on the grey side kind of things. Yeah, definitely at this point, and we can also see, oh yeah, of course it would come after season two. What am I on about? But yeah, I'm really looking forward to what season two adds. And not to mention, with the mention of Jeddah, now we're onto this planet, and yeah, there's the pilot right there. So because I think, oh yeah, they do have images of him from time to time, and they managed to get hold of him, and they're gonna confront him. Oh no! So did he make his own way to try and speak to Saul? Oh, okay, so he wasn't captured then. Okay. Yeah, I think they just need to just take him in. Um, yeah, and the other guy's looking around, make sure no one's followed him, and it's not anything any dodgy deal. So I think this is probably new to them, but yeah, I think amongst general gossip, yeah, that's the um, yeah, that's how the likes of the dude earlier, you probably heard about, yeah, the pilot. So this is the planet so that Jin's on. So that's where we could like, okay, so she is on another planet entirely until she gets out. Yeah, because people talk about the constant swapping of planets, and that's mainly at the beginning, really. And granted, it's some new planets we learn about, but you still want to get an idea for where everything is. And this is all right so far. Okay, so these are some of the rebels. So they would have got hold of, yeah, they only just want to gym mate. I can see that she's a capable fighter. We later get that confirming that Saul trained her. I mean, yeah, she was really decent fighter, and then there's the best character in the film. He's going to be in the next season, isn't he? Yeah, the way she's gonna slam to the ground like that, yeah, that won't be. Um, it would be hard to get up from like that. So yeah, we already know of Yavin 4, so yeah, that's you're well and good. So yeah, she may be arrested, but yeah, it is just to help her, just keep a lid on her, because they do need her for various information, mainly about Galen, which we'll find out. I chose a new identity at the moment. Okay, yeah, keeps herself hidden. Yeah, and these are her crimes. That's about 5. I wonder what kind of documents she did forge. Maybe it could be like traveling documents, perhaps. Oh no, if it's Imperial, then. Oh, well, she has been working for Saw Gerrera, so it would be all sorts of um, uh, deeds to help the rebellion in some way. Oh, Cassian's the captain. Okay, so he's do good cover about how he earned that rank, unless it's like in the 3rd season. Who knows? So she's a tad jaded, but in actuality, it would have been when he was taken, which it's a possibility that his life could have been lost after being taken. Despite being years, probably, yeah. Okay, so they do want to go for Saw Gerrera next. Okay, and okay, yeah. So Saw Gerrera leads almost like an extension of the rebellion, but just far more gritty, as we do see from time to time. Yeah, and I think that's what would have made Jin jaded in this way. And okay, so did Saw pass that information on to them? Yeah, so the pilot has. Oh yeah, so yeah, the pilot was sent by Galen. Yes, okay. Um, so yeah, if the pilot's already stated that information, yeah, then of course Saw would pass it on to them. And now it's just finding out what to do about this weapon. Oh yeah, he's around. Yeah, so if things play out normally, then yeah, so yeah, she's been given like an ultimatum. So it's either that uh, or come with what's his oh yeah, what's his name? Leia's oh Oh, I knew his name recently. We'll call him like the prequel dude for now. Yeah, he's cool. And then we get some bits and bobs of how the rebellion like get organised in that. You know, when they're prepared to go anywhere. Yeah, she is definitely reluctant and yeah, I wonder what Cassie would have said. Oh yeah, this is and then yeah, that's Kate Vesso's role. Yep. And then this is also the rebellion having well, it just goes to show that they might have to perform on some well, just go for some really tricky choices because they think by getting rid of Galen it means less progression, but yeah, and as you can definitely see how that goes on either side. Well, you can see both sides of the argument, you could say. Yeah, did she get that out of a bag or from within the jet somewhere? And then yeah, we already get an idea that jet is quite tense, so that makes sense. Yeah, and it's a reasonable response. You know, she was just trying to stand up for herself. Yeah, because if she does, try and do anything, then yeah, she would have been just like chased again. So yeah, and she doesn't want that, especially when she is going to, um, yeah, Gator is so great in this. But yeah, if Jin has a chance to be free, then of course she's going to take it because she's probably like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, she would. She is probably like really fed up of all their rebel stuff because yeah, because she isn't great about Sora at the moment, as you'll see later on. But over the course of this film, it's her getting some closure, which makes her more, um, let's see, more, um, just more for the rebellion. She, just not in her own side anymore. She, you know, yeah, you get the idea. Yeah, she just becomes yeah, far more of a rebellion. Oh yeah, that'll be his message. So Sora is extremely untrusting. There he is. It's probably been like because in the Rebels cartoon in that, of course, he would have been looked a lot younger. So I reckon Bodhi was he had like probably wondered what he did look like, but now he seen Sora and how aged he is. And some people pointed out that that's like it's like vaguely reminiscent of Vader. The breathing then, which has the intimidation, and then yeah, that's the creature they use later. So oh yeah, so that means yeah. So the oh yeah, of course yeah, it's Cassian who would have told the rebellion about the weapon coming up. So yeah, they haven't got no. Of course, no. Saul wouldn't have passed information on to them. Sorry, that's already a dumb thing of me to say. I feel like I need to put a disclaimer in. Yeah, sorry if I don't. Yeah, because even though this is like probably my yeah, it is my favorite Star Wars film, but I still like trying to pay attention and try and connect even more dots. So yeah, there's Saul's rebellion and the normal rebellion, yeah, just totally separate despite the goals. and then yeah, he would be referring to yeah, Brody of defecting. Is it Brody or Brody? Well, to call him the pilot. And yeah, very quickly, what I like about Taka being in this film, because he doesn't actually have a lot of screen time, but the film does talk about how it explains how he became the leader for the Death Star. Once it's finished. Not to mention the actor, whoever did Tarkin here, he was in Holby City, which is a famous UK show, and it's still going. Yeah, I somewhat missed that conversation. I'm going to go back to that, I think, if I remember. But regardless, services would be some setup of how Krennic, that's his name. Yeah, he is very keen to gain like a higher rank of some kind. And oh yeah, this is Coruscant. Yeah, and yeah, this is oh, so yeah, so he has been visiting them, so that's why he knows about the whole family. Okay. So yeah, this is definitely would be like earlier on, when things seem to be straightforward for them. And then so yeah, these are just a load of dreams she's having in here, because I think he can dream of memories. I think, or you'd probably just be looking back whilst you start sleeping. But yeah, we get just more of a what her life used to be like, and how it how she got to this point. I mean, how long ago she would have been like down at the cave. Yeah, I think. Well, I would just say she confirmed that she's been down there for a long time, and I think did she kept going in and out of there, or was it like a long time being with Saw only to be down there for a while, and then did she get arrested then? Either way is possible. So yeah, no, they made it Jeddah. Oh yeah, so if Jin would have been involved with Saw, yeah, I think I can see this being their settlement, but Andor season 1 shows Saw settling elsewhere, so that is where Jin could have been seeing Saw at, because Saw could have had to go here because it's more remote and more hidden, especially if the Empire is growing over time. And yeah, they're just mining up all the kyber crystals, yeah, which are source of a lightsaber, which those do or do not know. Yeah, which is quite an interesting conversion, with how the Jedi and Empire use peace and how they use the kyber crystals. Yeah, it's quite an interesting different parallel between that. Yeah, which is true. Even if you haven't seen the design, well, you can see from the original trilogy, we can probably guess why these kind of droids weren't like very present, because we didn't really settle in any Empire areas. Even the Endor moon was just to source the shield. Yeah. So he's just gonna stick around. Yeah. So yeah, when you like add these additions, they're reasonable. It does help like get more of an idea actually. Yeah. Now people call this like useless and time wasting. So firstly, this seems extremely short, and secondly, this just helps show us how Saw gets answers. Yeah, it is like a really gruesome creature, but it looks quite scary and tense. Don't know what this creature's going to do. I guess it does create the question of how does the creature then pass on the information, or is it Yeah, like how would the creature communicate with Saul? Would it know the alien language, perhaps, or oh yeah, because if it is like a tell the truth or lie, like we can imagine that the creature probably like I don't know, it would definitely communicate something being like, oh yes, it is telling the truth. So even if we don't know that, we can definitely infer either way. But yeah, comparing that to Canto Pie and how that there's like 10 minutes of like adding themes that don't become relevant later on, there's a massive difference. And so yeah, after being at the trading planets, now here we can see uh, the similarities and differences between culture. And yeah, it's what people say is the most not an Easter egg that goes a bit too far. To which I can kind of see why, and that means they would have to leave the planet rather early, considering what happens later on. Did Cassian just refer to the pilot as one of Saul's rebels? Oh, unless I don't know. So I just missed that as well. So that's two things I need to get back to. Okay. Okay, so I think those stormtroopers will probably have to go around the planet. I think maybe it's just like in a way to farm more carbon crystals if any citizens have kept some. That's my best guess. Unless it is just general order. So Cassian is okay. It's probably going to ask for directions or how to get hold of someone. And then yeah, his cheer up. Yeah, he's awesome in this. And yeah, and that is his name will come up to me. And those who only go by the films, the Kyber crystals, well, yeah, at least we've got that answer now, which is good. So yeah, the film is already doing quite well for a for like a general audience, just help filling in gaps and answer more questions from the OT, etc. And after seeing Coruscant, and Leia's, is it a foster dad? Yeah, it would be. Yeah, so it's it's acknowledging both trilogies, which is rather neat. Oh, so is that the when Cassian was talking to the citizen earlier? Is that what he just got hold of then? Um, unless, but if they don't know about the Death Star coming, unless Cassian was just told about this ambush that's about to happen. Yeah, some citizens about to fight some stormtroopers. And what's also interesting about this battle is that it's not just rebels against. Oh yeah, this is some of Saul's men who are about to fight these troopers, but Jin and Cassian, they have to defend amongst themselves first because they're not quite on Saul's side yet. Like they're later on to go on that level, but yeah, they just need to concentrate on themselves first. And not to mention, with the vehicle the stormtroopers are on, it's like almost like clean and metallic and has like some colour compared to the rest of the world, so it kind of makes them stand out like a sore thumb intentionally. Oh yeah, according to the Rogue One book, unfortunately this kid and her family don't quite make it out of the Death Star explosion, which is a real shame. But at least it just shows Jin, diving into action, which yeah, it's very brave of her. Oh yeah, there is a snippet later on. So there's some people thinking, wait, hang on, Cassian just nodded at someone. Why did he do that? But he actually nods at Jin. Oh yeah, right here, it's coming. Yes, the goose just noticed. Wait, hang on, who just shot him? Oh yeah, that would have affected. Oh yeah, because it would have been one of his men, or at least someone who was probably trying to help him. So yeah, some people thought, wait, hang on, why is Cassian like nodding at that dude. But no, where if you look at Cassian's direction, he was nodding at Jin to emphasize some teamwork. Or at least just show that they just help each other out. They're a bit of a team, and so yeah, we can see that's how the Kaiba's stored in that way. Oh my god, they got an ATSD as well. I forgot about that. So presumably because of Jin and Cassian's involvement, with like the bigger explosions and that's probably compromised Saw's mission involving his men. So now they're getting targeted as well, and she has a weapon. Yeah, a baton of some kind. A well-designed weapon. Just it's like a normal baton, but probably slightly bigger and probably harder. Yeah, because you see the robot seems so friendly, so I think she would have like been a bit guilty, but yeah, if she was in the middle of the action, yeah, would have you can see why she would have like shoot at him because you don't really see stormtrooper grenades until this point. Like we do see explosives in the original trilogy, but nothing like that. So it's kind of cool that they have grenades. That was quite a brief. Oh yeah, so he said he was just simply bored, and it's come back, which is a tad redundant, but then never mind. We'll see where. I'm just going to pay attention to K2SO because he comes up to the ship later on. Anyway, and is that a like a TIE fighter that was crashed down earlier, presumably because of Saw's involvement? Oh yeah, the actor, he said he was trying not to laugh because that slap was improvised. But they had like a metallic sound, so yeah, it's a convincing slap. That's confirmed in Andor season 1. These robots are just or droids rather. They're meant to be straightforward, and so to have a more expressive one, it would like raise some eyebrows. And yeah, the stormtroopers are just taking them in, more forcefully. So yeah, they're smart so far. Now they're just getting a bit lost for. Yeah, they're trying to give him some commands. Yeah, it's taking ready aim just in case, and they do try and shoot, which is refreshing. But yeah, he does just right at the time. Oh, he's knocked down some surrounding ones. Yeah, buys him some time to take down him. Then, oh yeah, I think that launcher was a bit delayed to shoot him, but while he's trying to shoot now, and then that one's down. Oh, we're using some dust to assist him. That's cool. And he like reaches out. Oh, there was a couple that just ran to him without shooting. Never mind. They probably would have been like, "Hey, start right there," or they probably just saw him and he just sorted out the lot. So you can definitely see that they are like more of a team, and he's just helped bring Chirrut's long range weapon, which is rather cool actually. Oh, he's unlocked them. Okay, there must be some way of doing it. Yeah, I think he subtly apologised. Oh, okay, so that's how he goes back to the ship. Okay, so I think he would have run off quickly before the others catch him. So yeah, that expands more on the culture. Um, oh, so if they answered that, I think they probably would have been like yes, but now they've been caught, and they have, Jin and Cassian. They did move on to another area, and Saw's men probably would have had to regroup and sort out the ATST and that. So I think that's why they're probably just coming just now. And now this is where she has to emit AI identity for good of all of these, just to pretty much save their skin. But they need to go to Thor anyway. So yeah, but yeah, with the likes of Chirrut, obeying the Force in his own way, yeah, that just once again expands on the lore and culture a bit. because yeah, they're called the Guardians of Wills, and Wills was even a concept when George was making the first film. So yeah, what tattoo is that really neat. Okay, so I think all of that's been collected. Who knows how much of the Kyber they've reserved, unless the Empire did actually. Oh no, yeah, they did shoot out the lot of them, so I think they would have probably got hold of the vehicle and off they go. So I think in Saul's eyes, this mission will probably be a failure. You know, because yeah, no one knows about the Death Star yet, because they know about the weapon, but I don't think they know about it coming here, and I don't think they know what it looks like either. Anyway, this is a far simpler prison system compared to where Cassian was in season one. So yeah, he's fine. He can get out short enough, soon enough. So either way. Okay, I don't know why she was taken for a different. Oh, okay, no, it's just maybe this is just being taken around a different part of the building. So yeah, she's going to be taken straight to Saul, and then you can see what Saul's group is like. You know what they do in their own time, and they're probably organising all sorts. And not to mention, you with the cultures and the looks and a couple of new vehicles, it's yeah, it does seem to obey the Star Wars design look, you know, especially from the OT, which is once again really cool. Oh, he senses that. Oh, Baze, yeah, that's his name, of course, yeah. So yeah, so that definitely confirms, you know, Chirrut can sense feelings and intentions, which pays off a couple of times later on. Yeah. Did yeah, Baze and Chirrut say this is the first time they've been locked up? Is that what the dialogue said? Yeah, once again, I'm reading some subtitles with very little audio from headphones. I have to keep the audio low because I have ear problems. Anyway, so is their that's their reunion, and they're just wondering how they feel about one another. Okay, here's the catch up. Yeah, down at the bunker, and that would have been years later. So yeah, because Jin looks about 20 or 30 now, so she probably she probably has been down there for quite some time. She might have got out herself and got captured that way, but as you know, it's later confirmed. You know, she wasn't just left there um, because you know she probably felt forgotten or useless. But no, Saul was trying to protect her all this time. To which I could see both sides of that. And then this is where um, um, yeah, Jin does start to like soften up a bit. And then oh yeah, and even Saul right there, he's probably trying to explore what's going on, but um, you know, thinking, you know, is Jin going to go for him? But Owen, he's probably figured that out because yeah, he probably would be aware that his rebellion and the other rebellion, you know, aren't you know getting on much. And then Jin just you know just you know once again just straight to the point. And yeah, what Saul says earlier, and also the breathing problem, that just goes to show that I don't think he has much time left in him, which explains later on, which I'll get to. And yeah, that shows her perspective of the whole rebellion thing. Yeah, so she almost like brushes off the Empire, but she doesn't believe in like going against it because you know if it's just scenes to reassert her over time. So that explains more of her motivation and personality. So yeah, you know when these people say, "Oh, these characters don't have traits," like they do if you pay attention. Like I know it's like a slower film, and it is like a Disney one, but at least it's done by people who actually care about this fictional universe, want to expand on it reasonably. Okay, so their previous conversation would probably be about where they're at now, and a single ignition. Oh yeah, because I was wondering, why this just looks like a nuclear explosion compared to, when Blair's planet forgot, completely exploded. Um, oh, did it take Chirrut that long to notice just now? Well, I suppose if he to take some time. And oh, so okay, probably read the logo, and of course, Bays would definitely have something against the Empire. But I think what they don't know yet is that um, that the pilot's a mole. You can sense him, right? Oh no, Chirrut is just still trying to figure out what the pilot's all about. So yeah, Cassian is pleased to see him, to finally get some answers. Because Cassian is having like a reasonable chat with him. Um, so yeah, it looks like the Death Star's at a single ignition, because some people had a theory that, or maybe it's smaller amount of kyber crystals then, which means in episode 4 they have like a whole bunch of it, therefore they could just destroy a load of planets. But no, it just looks like it's at a smaller quantity, which actually explores a bit more of the Death Star's power. They can just take away cities, not just entire planets, which yeah, I can see how that can be handy sometimes for the Empire. This is definitely the first time she's seen her dad, and the dad would have looked a bit more aged, and no, he speaks directly to her. Yeah, because I think Saw would have no, no, I don't think Saw's opened the message yet. I think he's only just got some information because he wondered about why Jin came to him, and yeah, he looks a bit maybe no, I don't think he looks surprised, but I think all of this information is probably new to him. And oh yeah, and as some people have pointed out, what Galen did right here, actually fix a plot hole in episode 4. Why was there an exhaust in the first place? But he made a intentional flaw. He would have had to be like, oh, it just helps with the fumes, whatever, something like that. He would have said something like that, and they were just like, okay, design it that way. And then in his mind, it's like, now we can just, the robots can just basketball it through the hoop. And so yeah, we can see how much of this message means to her. And then he's explaining how much it's been getting to him as well, which we do see more of, because when we see him in that raining planet later on, he you can just see how much weight is on him. And yeah, he would have heard that, being like, what's going on, because the city is definitely not far. But she would have been very drawn to the message. Oh yeah, so that is oh yeah, that's the beach planet later on. Yeah, that he mentions. Yeah, the tower. Yeah, and even if the message is cuts off, they all know what to do, and it's really cool for the Death Star to completely go over the sun like that. Yeah, because it does have some of the best shots. I would agree. Best looking Star Wars film, though, I have a tough time with this one. Although this one does definitely have the best shots. But it's all bang on in this film, that's for sure. Oh, he was gonna fight him off. Oh yeah, because he was loaded. I think not loaded, but he was just he had his hand on his Cassian had his hand on his weapon. But I think they both had a brief look of we're definitely not here to fight. And but um, as sort of can see right here, he definitely won't be able to make it, and they need they need to go. Jin has all the information she needs. She didn't definitely needs to go, and all of them go as well. And I don't think we see them joining the battle later on. Maybe like one or two, unless I'm wrong. But I think they just have to go off elsewhere. They'll probably join like the main empire, the main rebel later on. I can see that happening. And oh, there you go. Yeah, they're probably, well, after seeing that ship, and and then this is where they're like, that is our ride. Yeah, because I think they're just like, what do we here do? But I think they'll just make the most of that surroundings. But K2SO is on his way. Yeah. I like how he says there's no horizon. If anything, he could probably just see it unfold. But yeah, regardless, it's a good comedic line. Yeah, his comedic import is not only consistent, um, but yeah, just some nice levity every now and again. Yeah, so he's only just come out now, probably at his normal walking pace, perhaps. So yeah, he would have slowed down the lot, so he definitely wouldn't be able to make it. Like, even if it is cliche, at least the film actually gives some reasons why. Because not only is he shown to be immobile at times, but the breathing problem as well. Must have not been very well, and he must have been quite old as well. Like, what the character saw would be about 70 or 80, something like that. It might. Are they still trying to? Oh, okay. Oh yeah, so he was in the middle of the calculations. Okay, so that's why they're a bit delayed. But yeah, the path was clear enough, and yeah, off they go. So that's fine. Yeah, they haven't done any podo move across the rocks. Imagine that. That would have been like another sight across the planet. They were like, oh, I like this explosion, but what's this blue beam that's gone across? Anyway, they're fine. And I think all of them were just like wondering. I think they're talking about the result as well. The Krennic's a bit on edge, being like, "Oh, what do we do?" But it looks like Tarkin's in for the idea. Oh, okay. So yeah, it's just seeing how it actually works practically. But how to get her into the city, yeah, that would have, um, pleased Tarkin, because yeah, because it was Jeddah City as well as having a lot of the Kyber. I guess was it all for the, well, it did get him. They would have kept fighting against the stormtroopers down there, so we can see why they would have gone for a city like that. And this is also confirming Tarkin being like, "I'm going to be overseeing the Death Star, not you." Eodu? Oh, that's the Maronian planet. I think later on. Oh, so yeah, Tarkin would. Yeah, so yeah, Tarkin. would have pointed that out. So that's where Krennic is Krennic going to see Vader first and then go down? No, I think it just go to Erdu first, and then this is probably someone from the rebellion, or maybe one of Saul's men pass that information on, or could have been Cassian. Oh, it was Cassian. No, it was Cassian that did communicate it. Okay. Yeah. Even if they do need to get rid of Galen, like yes, he would probably hold the weapon, but wait, hang on. So the weapon's completed, it's enacted. Probably not need any need of production anymore. Or maybe they want to get rid of Galen in order to um, stop the power further, or maybe create any more Death Stars. Is that why? Um, okay. Yeah, I think they're all probably worn out from the explosion, and I think the pilot also just like a sense of guilt with what side he used to be a part of. How does Cassian know to? Oh, did they? Oh, so they get to catch up and clarify some things, and that it was his father that sent him. Yeah, so that at least Jim will know about that. Anyway, what was I on about? Yes, to do the. Oh yeah, of course, yeah, the rebellions will know where Adu is and what the facility is. Um, oh yeah, but they needed to go to Jeddah to see what the defecting pilot was on about and what information they would have. So yeah, that's why they haven't gone to AD first. Okay, yeah, because Galen's assassination can wait if information is definitely needed to get hold of first. Oh, yeah, because Cassian didn't see the message, so he's a bit skeptical in that way. Engine's becoming less skeptical, which is some progression for her. And reasonably, she couldn't get hold of it. She was in a state of shock and they needed to move. It was already crumbling. Yeah, and what's unfortunate about the message being destroyed is that it's only her has the information, and she's someone that's not entirely trusted. So, yeah, especially with the criminal activity, because even if she isn't for the Imperials, she's just on her own side causing nuisance activities, which is why she's not the most bleeding, and not to mention having a dad that works for the Empire, despite not being all for it. And then she passes on this important information. Yes, Scarif, that's the beach planet. Yeah, I remember. Oh yeah, not to mention, I remember some people saying, "Wait, hang on," he was talking to the rebels earlier through the message. Why, you know, um, because when Cassian was communicating with the rebels, then that would have been away from Imperial activity. Then considering how long and fast light speed is, so this is probably about 5 minutes later, and now Cassian believes that they're nearby the Empire territory enough to not worth risking sending the message then. So I can see both sides of that. Okay, I see Chronix off to Edu as well. So yeah, so this is the main location for the next few minutes. And yeah, similar to I guess it's similar to Top Gun Maverick, yeah, staying low to stop being censored, because after all you have to really mind these rocks. And but even if oh yeah, so he knows the area, so he's almost like their navigator. And yeah, he is having to speak very quickly because they get spotted, they're done for. And now their ship is going down. That means they would have to find another one soon, which they do. and it becomes handy. Any Imperial ship becomes handy later on. Oh yeah, so with the ship down, so because with crashes, they're often leading to a loss of life. That's where the rebels then make a rash decision to, um, to send the forces there, which it can still pause the Death Star's production. It's another um, decent fight against the Empire. Just take another down at their facilities. Um, so yeah. So yeah, once again, Cassian just needs the pilot for navigating. Yeah, it's like a more formal, very formal way of saying it. And then those close-ups of Chirrut there, yeah, he knows something isn't right. Because Cassian is like very on edge. Like, you would be very on edge anyway, but looks like Chirrut can see beyond that. So yeah, they are and that's where, because you already know that extra confirming. So yeah, Jin knows about Chirrut being tied to the Force. We saw him. She saw him in action. So yeah, that's where Jin's like, nah, I'm not letting doing this, because they would. Oh yeah, because they were. I think Jin had an idea to probably get hold. Well, to not only stop Cassian, but hopefully get hold of Galen, so he could be taken back to the base. I think that was addressed once, unless that was a subtle intention at one point. Anyway, the squadron's on the move, so they would have to start moving quickly. So Cassian does explain why he needed to reach that point. And because if they were talking about just arriving here for Galen, and if that was like the main intention, that's why Jim would have been like, oh no, if we are all going for Galen, then I do need to stop Castian from the assassination. And Chirrut's going to despite not a lot of screen time, they're just like best buddies, and Chirrut's like the one being like, nah, you're coming with me. So it's a nice fun dynamic, and poor Kay is like, yeah, but about Cassian and not so much about the rest. That wasn't very nice, but in the actuality, they might need to leave soon enough, if they ever get attacked. So once Cassian's on board, presumably Jin as well. Chirrut and Baze don't really aren't very important to K2SO at the moment. But that's where K2SO is definitely wrong on that, isn't he? So yeah, there's looking out for Jin, which is nice, and Chirrut's passing on some wisdom to Baze there, which actually pays off a bit more later on. We'll see how that plays out more. And there he is in the dark uniform. So what's Cassian's pretend excuse? So all of these engineers have been sent out. They're yet to find out why. Oh, they would have been reflected, but they were small, so they're warheaded enough. Okay, just looking, because Cassian was just having his weapon there, so I think the pilot is probably assuming, oh, probably taking down the forces so that Kanan. Oh yeah, because he has a sniper, of course. So I think the pilot's probably thinking, oh, it's probably like, Cassian has a plan to get Galen out, probably shoot down some men. But the way Cassian's is being like, oh, you just go back to the ship, which would have protected the pilot as well. So, yeah, because I think the pilot was quite reluctant to come out, but now he's asked to come back in. He's like, okay, if Cassian knows what to do, then fine, I'll come back in. So that's the kind of idea I'm getting from. Okay, so Krennic decided to confront these men first and not Galen as well. Although regardless, by confronting them, it would have made Galen be like, no, don't go for them. So I think Krennic is probably playing a bit of a game. I probably should have cut your hair, mate. I don't think Cassie can hear anything from this point on. The rain definitely won't help. So yeah, so like Jin, Galen does his best to try and preserve human life, which is why. Oh, we could have got shot there. Oh, that really got me then. Oh yeah, him suddenly moving like that, yeah, that would have made Cassie be like, oh, gosh. I think that's where he started to doubt a bit. And yeah, so now he's permitted. Yeah, I feel like Cassian should like watch Krennic as well, especially if he's making a come here kind of gesture. So yeah, I think that's what I would have done for the sniper. Oh, okay, yeah, so all of this time he was in some kind of doubt. But I think he's probably been looking back on what Jim was saying, being like, oh, if he is alive, then it can be used to us. Because, if they don't have the actual message, then Jin the Galen's the best shot they have. So yeah, he's going against the rebels' orders in order to be more efficient that way. Yeah, and I think Krennic also swift move. Yeah, it's raining, so once again noise is deterred. Although she's there, which can cause complications. Yeah, why didn't K2SO mention that earlier? Oh, unless but by Cassian talking to KSO, that gives K2SO the reason to be like, okay, so if he's free to communicate, then let's answer, instead of being like, oh, we're going to risk communicating with him, because it could have been like trying to like sneak around. Yeah, they're far too gone. And this is a similar alarm to the Death Star, isn't it? I was going to say something else as well. Oh yeah, well, I did. Cassian like decide to stick around. I think was it to. I don't know, because if he was thinking to get hold of Galen, then why not advance? Unless he was just trying to see what else was happening. And also, yeah, someone else wondered. I wonder why Krennic got rid of the engineers, but I think that's because the engineers are probably not in use anymore because of the Death Star being completed. Is that what they're going for? And that's something that because the rebels don't know about if they're going to progress further or not. And the TIE fighters numbers are they have a decent turret there, okay. But yeah, TIE fighter numbers are slightly lower down because this is only a research facility, which I can see how that won't be the most guarded place. You should see Scarif, because they have a whole heap of important information there. Yeah, they have all sorts. Although, yeah, why aren't there more TIE fighters here? Because the research facility is, well, no, I think the tower in Scarif is definitely far more valuable. And yeah, this is where they haven't really like Although, yeah, I don't think they. Oh no, they can't really see where Jin is at. So, um, although that's a really good shot. But yeah, I think with the sense of the squadron, that's where Chirrut's like, oh, yeah, let's help the rebels out here, which yeah, kind of gets him on their side. You know, these men just taken outside, and oh, they probably can see that the Ursos are probably no longer with them. Yeah. Oh, Jin probably hid intentionally to, you know, stop her from being seen, because yeah, she would have been shot if she was seen moving. Oh no! Gosh. Yeah. Yeah, not only was that dangerous, but all of that is just like costed time with the last moments with Galen, which once again is, you know, quite sad. Oh, she should have ran a bit, unless, you know, she didn't want to slip, but never mind. So they had one more look with one another, which, yeah, is really nice. And she has her nickname as well. And that confirms it. They'll have him in peace. Have him in peace? Let him in peace? I don't know, either way. Also, something else I wondered about is that, you know, some people wondered, you know, why didn't Jin like go angry against the rebels, considering it was their squadron and their attack that got him. But I don't think did Jin. Because I knew, because she was definitely looking at the dead ahead. Although, by the way, that was risky because she could have got shot then. But would they have the need to? Oh no, well, she was armed, so um, yeah. And she also shouted before she noticed about the squadron. And oh yeah, she's leaving herself to be quite vulnerable as well. But she is, you know, really devastated. So yeah, because we know that Cassian was brought up by, you know, adoptive parents. Well, definitely the mum in who's played by, um, oh, Harry Potter's auntie. Forgot her name. God damn it. Uh, anyway, that's where they're still helping out for our far, which is, yeah, cool. And yeah, with all that trouble down, yeah, they now need to go back to the ship. And there's still, oh wow, there's still many forces about. Strangely on foot, despite how rocky the area is. Oh, so yeah, they thought um, that it was like an enemy ship, but it isn't. It's just been hijacked. Oh yeah, because yeah, we can see how the ship would have been like hijacked by them. Oh yeah, so when K2SO was communicating with Cassian, so that's both the pilot and. Oh, I know. I thought. No, yes, they would be communicating with that. You know, using that ship, because although it explains, oh yes, I think, oh yeah, because Cassian was communicating with K2SO through, you know, the talking chips, you know, from Revenge of the Sith, you know, what RT used to use. But yeah, they would have been on another ship, because if the previous ship signal is dead, then, you know, K2SO could not have, you know, got Cassian's. Oh no, he got communication that way. Unless did yeah, surely it would have been like the news on the news ship to sense the squadron coming. Yeah, that would make sense instead of using the crash ship to do that. And plus, by having that new ship now, means they've, although if they somehow sneak around for this ship, yeah, it won't be easy to get. Although if all the forces are drawn out, then that's how they could get into it. And I think they didn't show this, so they could have like some more surprise factor, being like, oh yeah, they got hold of a Imperial ship, um, but I think they probably should have like shown like a shot of all the forces coming out. But I think that's something we can assume. Anyway, whole heap of moments. Chirrut is sorry about Jin's loss, but now, you know, Jin's figured out you know, what Cassian was initially up to. But Cassian explains that um, you know, he's saying that you know, he didn't um, you know, go for it in the end, but he's just trying to justify it that, you know, they're just orders, something which Jin doesn't really understand, because yeah, because you wouldn't really be ordered by Saw, you know, Saw would just be like, do this, but in the Rebels it would be like, I order you to do this, which is different. And yeah, thanks to the Andor show, we can see what his history being younger was like. Yeah, even with Fiona Shaw, that's her name. I forgot the mother's name, the character name, but yeah, Fiona Shaw, that's the actress. Yeah, even when she did take Cassian in, I think they were still in a type spot because they're the main world in Andor season 1. That still gets really overlooked, and yeah, because of Jin Shelton, I think Cassian's just like, oh, anyone else want to have a go at me, but everyone's just like doing all sorts. I wonder what the pilot was doing on the controls then. Um, um, Probably communicating or just organising systems on on the vehicle. I'm not sure. Anyway, so we can definitely This is Mustafar, isn't it? Just a less lava-ish place, isn't it? So yeah, this is where because we see Vader in the in the healing tank almost, to try and there's Imperial Guards as well. That's a neat feature. So yeah, I think Vader will probably have some control of this tank, being like, okay, if I need to be seen, I do need to go out. Yeah, I think that's just to yeah, it's probably just additional healing, presumably. Yeah, because as Corley would have been, kind of cool to see more of him. But I think by having, Krennic is more of a personal threat to Jim, hence why he's more on the forefront. But I think Krennic would only have about like 10 minutes more screen time compared to Vader. So yeah, because Vader only comes in when necessary. Because even the filmmakers were like, we have to be careful with how we use him, and he's used rather well, and he uses screen time well. And Vader, of course, can look at Krennic and yeah, I think Krennic is just kind of scared, and not to mention Tarkin just knocked him off his rank, and also losing the research facility, and was just wondering what Vader thinks of the weapon. But as we later find out, yeah, Vader isn't all for the Death Star, which is confirmed in Episode 4. Oh, he knows about this as well. So did his staff or whatever like update him? Because he wouldn't have been communicated through the tank, would he? Is that a thing? It's possible. Oh yeah, Imperial Senate. Oh yeah, of course the Council. Yeah, so they've just so to avoid problems, so they've because even though the Death Star, because there would have been no survivors on the planet, very unlikely. Because I think none of his residents would have had access to ships, right? Not without like a severe grip. So yeah, if no one was around to witness the Death Star other than Jin and her team, then that's how that narrative could be made up. So Krennic's just wondering about his position, but Vader's just keeping him in his place. Yeah, he's still rather cool. Because if that with the many deleted scenes and shots that were there, it just makes you wonder what else involves him. But if having more Vader in that, I don't know, could he have like joined the battle in Scarif? That would have been kind of cool. But it is just being the most reasonable. But I think Vader will probably leave the planet somewhere because he rises to Scarif later on, assuming it's real time. Anyway, I really like this scene. So this so the rebels at this point, they're in a very unsure position, and with the new Death Star, that definitely won't make things easier. Yeah, none of them have seen the Death Star, so they don't quite believe it. Not all everyone anyway. And yeah, that shows that Jin's not being believed in. And yeah, she does attempt to motivate them. Yeah, because even if she wasn't like into the rebellion at first, she knows how to be very motivated, and so that's what she tries to go for here. And yeah, not to mention there's all sorts of council members and fighters and leaders. So yeah, everyone gets to have a say, which is interesting. And yeah, that probably has things about Scarif because it's quite the security is really tense there. So that's where like, oh, what do we do? And I think that's what the rebellion kind of learned as well. To use Hope as assistance. Oh no. And the way they are backing down, it is because of reasonable reasons, you could say. Yeah, it's just um, the main point. Yeah. Oh yeah, I think I finished off my point about why Jin Demon like why how dare you send a squadron and get my dad killed, and I think I would have liked that being addressed, but it's but not only would have Galen most likely died earlier on anyway, but he would be like, just all you need to do is just tell them to send the message because the rebels need to fight the Empire because after all the Empire is what got Galen in that position in the first place, and the rebels just only got mixed in it. And like I said, it would have been nice for it to be addressed, but she has to be sensible and try to get the rebellion on board. But now there's a bit of a low point, and oh yeah, because what's did Cassian? No, he wasn't at the council. Okay, but it's probably been updated. Everyone's probably about to leave, and so yeah, we have some rebellious rebels off to do their own mission, which is rather neat. So we got like its own miniature rebel alliance until the rest of the rebels come. So yeah. Yeah, how could you say this film is like boring until like the third act? This film is like filled with moments of connecting the dots, and yeah, like granted, some people just want to lay back and relax, and I can think you can still do that, but every film requires attention, whether you hear and see. So, and if you're not doing that, then what's the point of watching the film? Because you might as well just like look at the colours and maybe some surface level ideas. Because that's what I used to do when I was a kid. But I've learned to pay attention because when you're creating your own story, you have to acknowledge a lot. Anyway, sorry, I'm just going over this presumably nice speech from Andor. How many moments is that to catch up on? Yeah, it is a massive ship. And yeah, I think Chirrut was just minding his step there. And that's quite a nice moment until it's just being brutally honest. Um, yeah, because they've had some time together, so yeah, I like the dynamic at this point. And it's been like a new home, which yeah, I can see that, yeah, because there's Saw sadly not around anymore. And oh yeah, oh yeah, because when casting all the pilot arrived, of course they would have said, we just hijacked this Imperial ship and we're coming, so they would have done that. That's why I didn't get shot down. Yep, and yeah, the Force is definitely like hope in some way, like representative of hope, and so yeah. Anyway, this is being acknowledged. How they're going to leave, and with them being like call sign. Yeah, so I think that's a label of some kind. I'm not very knowing of piloting or RAFs and that, so I think that's what it's like a confirming for when to go. But anyway, because it's not really on the systems, and yeah, I think that's K2SO, who's definitely deep in the rebellion. I think that probably helps confirm them, and I'm surprised there isn't like any other people being like, wait, hang on, we haven't finished where you're going, but I guess you could have new ones, but I don't know what that like cause concern. And I think that dude right there would have been wondering what's going on, because this doesn't get passed on. There would have been like, oh, some ship just left, but if this rebellion is finished, then um, will some people leave then? And that's probably referring to Obi-Wan, or even Yoda, perhaps. Oh yeah, no. So does it wait? Does that mean Obi-Wan has also been in contact a couple of times about Leia, which you can see it happening. Like I know what we all think of the Obi-Wan show, but at least that shows how Obi-Wan could be communicated by Leia's foster dad. We're going to see that anyway without that show. um, oh yeah, this is probably even the pilot's first time of going to Scarif, which is true, but you'll probably still freeze up and all your joints will either get rusted out in space or whatever happens because it's extremely cold. Yeah, rusted is not like the best way. Also, yeah, Brody, either way, tends to contact first. Although, yes, as they pointed out, they haven't been told about this, so yeah, they have to think extremely careful with what they say here, because this is normally a ship used by the higher ups. So, would they actually ask about that? Actually, unless it is just normally a bigger ship for more people. Oh, yeah, some people thought this moment means that Jin can just um like mind control those on the um um is that no, but yeah, Jin doesn't know how Jedi's powers work, so yeah, she can't have communicated those down the line because the this is not the droid you're looking for, kind of ability. You have to look that to the foe straight in the eye. So if that's the consistent rule, then yeah, of course, Jin wouldn't have mind control the lot down there. But the pilot's just given a fairly reasonable reason. It's a imperial ship, old-fashioned design, and yeah, there's nothing really to contradict it. Yeah, the reason Jim was just holding that was, I think it's just her holding on to hope. There's nothing supernatural about her necklace, even if it is a kyber crystal. But they only source lasers that don't help source the force or whatever. And so yeah, off there you go. So yeah, the tension's really building, and got more than a third of the film left. Yeah, 56 minutes left, I think. Oh yeah, my gosh, yeah, that's an entire hour. Um, so yeah, we talk about the last half an hour really. Half an hour, no, last hour, last half of the film rather. And then as they're landing, Jin helps motivate the men once more because it is already tense. They've pushed past the gate, and now the hard stuff is about to. Well, I think the gate is probably the first hard bit, but now they're all about to fight, and these men are most likely won't make it, which is very sad. I remember there's a moment later on in the film where they all look at each other, being like, "Oh, we might not be able to get out, but we'll at least try and get the message out." And yeah, as well as being a good motivational speech, she's stating some instructions, well, at least what's happening with them. Or there's some more instructions. There we go. Main squad, move east. So that goes to tower. Okay. and then that will be referring to the explosives they have. Okay, so yeah, so he said east from, or east, and something about the tower later on. So because with where the explosions happen, that actually does draw out a lot of the forces out, so that the main trio could, you know, go into the tower and that, because it's not until later where they're like, all suspicious activity in the tower, you know, we must attend to it. And so the ship's about to be inspected. Oh yeah, because yeah, so it's just yet another check. Yeah, because I think at the gate there must have been like, it's an Imperial ship, it's somehow landing, there's no request, what should we do? And they'll probably be like, oh, we'll just see what they're like anyway, and then still send this this team. And according to this guy's perspective, good to have someone on the watch up, by the way, but that means that they would see 4 men go in, but 3 different individuals go out, one of them being a robot, so maybe they're just like chill on the ship, or would they like examine the ship still? I think that's kind of reasonable if, you know, with what it could have looked like. Oh no, now he's going in as well. Yeah, why is he going back in there? Is it because of the information, or yeah, what was the? Oh, I think that conversation probably could answer why Krennic is going to that planet. Is this maybe is this like an area he normally oversees? We'll see what happens. Yeah, I'm not sure why he's there. Yeah, that's just indicating the bond between them. After all, they're almost like Jin's guardians at this point. You know, Tourette Baze were, you know, keen to um yeah, look out for her. What about that individual standing? Oh, okay, no, that's on the opposite side. Okay, so that's why they're going. Okay, and he's distracted by the gate, so yeah, he won't see any of the men leaving. Okay, and now they're in vegetation, so they're nice and hidden, which is kind of reminiscent of Endor. Yeah, episode 8 nor 9 use that line, do they? I don't think so. Um, and Solo does the opposite. They go like, "Oh, I have a good feeling about it," and then the shows use it 1 or 2 twice, 1 or 2 twice. Not sure. Um, yeah, because I think it would have been like a really cool line to have in every film, but I think it is just having to use it wisely, because I don't really know where to put it in any of the films and shows. All right, so that's Krennic's landing. And then yeah, Kay knows what he needs to do. And yeah, when we see K2SO and Cassian also in the second show, that's going to make me feel even more bad for when both of them go at when they both lose their lives in battle. So that's how he's like different here. He has more orange rims, and K2SO has a bit of the yellow. So yeah, definitely a difference there. Probably like a slight upgrade, perhaps. What would it be called? A K2F K3SO? um, so yeah, so neat conversation about the ships being updated. So yeah, because the Force Awakens kind of does that, although we can reckon that is the ships more relevant to the OT era. Yeah, because I don't know what the Force Awakens talks about with the Stormtrooper conversation about ships. And yet Baser's always around, yeah. And yet tasers are a thing in Star Wars, yeah, I can see that being the case. Imagine if it was like a stun one, just shoots like a little blue hoop and hits the back of people's necks. I think that probably would have been more Star Wars like instead of a natural taser, but either way, they're handy. Oh, so that's why Krennic's there. Okay. I granted I missed the line, but we but he needed to get moving on something. Okay, so I think they would have had to go for like the following robot, or maybe find a way to make a U-turn and then get hold of him. But yeah, it is just having to go all around without seeing conspicuous. Otherwise, they're like three individuals being like, "Oh, let's just follow this robot." Granted, it would have been better to see it, but at least we can infer it. Just and now they know where to go. Oh, so it's a slightly lower possibility. And yeah, considering what the statistics, Jin still wanted to go for it. I was going to make a reference. I don't know which one that had too many going off in my head. I could have said, Yuni, like the meme. Well, they need your orders. Yeah, so off they go. So Krennic's like, because it could have been like a malfunction at first, but not like that. Right, so the forces are off, and we have beach troopers as well, which, yeah, they go more far around compared to stormtroopers, don't they? Yeah, that was yeah. And what about those red Sith troopers in Episode 9? Like, why, what made them stand out? Was it because they were more around Sith territory, like higher ranked stormtroopers? I couldn't see that being the case. Okay, so that confirms that. Oh, well, we already know from Episode 4 that the Death Star can travel. That was a good whack. Yeah, the K2SO's hammer, like clenched fist, was quite like looked like a proper blunt weapon there. So these guys are probably like find coding all across the galaxy, and so what is he about to tell them? He's a private. Okay, wow, and he's doing coding, etc. Oh, oh, Radus. Yeah, he's sick in this fight. Yeah, he's the grey alien who's similar to Admiral Akbar. And interestingly enough, Episode 8 has the ship named after him, to which that's one thing I like about Episode 8 at least, naming the ship after him. Um, oh yeah, so yeah, with so we've taken the Death Star to Scarus. So yeah, Tarkin has a pretty big idea to perhaps uh, to destroy the tower, because like yes, he would have information there, but I think by getting rid of the Death Star information, because he doesn't know about the I like that cameo, because yeah, Tonkin doesn't know about the floor, but if there is important information that the rebels could get hold of, then I think destroying it is probably the best thing to do, to stop the rebels' plans. Not to mention, where do the AT-ATs come from when they... Not sure. Oh, he's trying to scare them off. That's a pretty yeah, it's a good way to get the enemies away. So yeah, that's a neat idea. Yeah, so that's one reason why the pilot can stay about. It probably has like the rest of the troopers as well, but they will probably stay there to guard the pilot. And yeah, if that dude has access to the computer, then yeah, we can see why his fingerprints would be the ones the system can answer to. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how the AT-ATs were. Maybe they were like more far away, or did they get dropped off? Because I think they do get like dropped off in some way, surely. I like how he sensed them before he did, but all this fire would have like distracted. And these look like early AT-ATs because they look less like refined and complete compared to like episode 8, which is a good few years. No, sorry, episode 5, which is good few years after this. Oh, yep, so the rebels are arrived. Say the attack below is one thing, but now they have this lot. Yeah, yeah, Riders, yeah, he's so cool. He's almost like one of my favourite characters, from the scene alone. And this is some repurposed, yeah, footage, which is actually rather neat. Yeah, just some familiar faces, to really, it just adds to that Star Wars connectivity. Now, granted, he could have had other rebel captains, but to show these guys off more, in the X-wing, yeah, it's rather neat. So he's the primary, yeah. Oh yeah, because he sadly goes. So yeah, episode 4 has another lead, doesn't he? Okay, yeah. So they're going to, yeah. So they're going for the gate first. Yeah, to help those below. Yeah, okay. And despite being slightly slow, oh, quickly. No, he's done for. And that's what it looks like against the shields. But regardless, they can, because even if the original plan was to go through the shields, they can still get rid of some forces above. And then yeah, start to do communication. And this could be like some of their looks of, oh, we're probably not going to make it. Even data size is a factor, or file size. Okay, there he is. Yeah, so so yeah, I think yeah, but the pilot needs to go outside, which is risky, but it's what needs to be done. Maybe unexpected, but you can at least see some kind of through line, and yeah, traffic weapon is rather nice. Oh, some of the AT-AT's feet has like coral to them. That means they've probably been standing by on like the sea for ages. Yeah, it explains the coral. So these must be like AT-AT troopers or something. Yeah, is that what they look like in episode 5? And the AT-AT is like, no. So that explains how tricky they are, but looks like, yeah, because the snow speeders really struggled against the AT-ATs. And granted, these are probably lower model AT-ATs, but these X-wing pilots, yeah, they're all vehicles, yeah, they're rather good. And if so, with them up in the air, that probably helps. Yeah, it will assist the pilot here. And yeah, now this is where these men, they all had to go out to help defend him. Yeah, so yeah, so with this signal, so with the shield up, which is blocking some signal, which yes, could definitely confirm there from above. And yeah, they're going to try to destroy the shield, which they, oh yeah, even if they are like destroying the shield, to help with the communication, etc. They don't know about what's going on down there, so yeah, because by taking the shield down, that probably would have helped facilitate the plans being sent later on. Um, so what they're both doing, they just don't know what each other's side are doing, and they're just doing the best with what they can, and they're both making rather good progress. They look like stun lasers. That's kind of neat. That must be is that a B wing on the right then? A stun laser. That's kind of neat. Oh, they have to search the long way. This is like a claw machine. See, it is like an obstacle, but he eventually gets the hang of it. And so that's to try and protect Jin and Cassian then. I think the troops are probably sent here to make sure nothing was going off in the tower, but because K2SO had to make these choices, like granted, why did Cassian decide to communicate K2SO at that point? Unless just make sure everything was good, but K2SO just really trying to hold them off. Yeah, so none of these lines were in the episode 4, were they? So they just must have successfully copied the characters over and have them say different lines. And yeah, the pilots definitely took their time getting these vehicles, but now this entire lot has been released, that won't make it easy. Definitely not. Yeah, so these ships are just like there to help guide and communicate. I'm surprised they don't have like automatic turrets off them, but yeah, fair enough. At least their shields are quite high. Yeah, it'll probably be I wonder how they communicate that. Oh yeah, so as I was saying, so yeah, the shields are up, signals unable to go through, but the pilot needs to connect a couple of things, but by activating the master switch, that then will allow the plans to be sent once Jin and Cassian put it through another system somewhere. We'll see how it plays out. So at this point, so despite having a objective, the battle's definitely sporadic at times. So the attacking the shields up there is definitely slowed down because of these TIE fighters. I think K2SO's already been shot a couple of times then. Yeah, they're having to defend each other as well. But at least they got rid of the AT-ATs, that's helped. Yeah, so that probably is like a facilitator of signals somehow, that box. Yeah, I'm rubbish with technology, so I'm not like the best expert. Oh no, he's hoping it was long enough. Why did he go all the way around anyway? It just looks like that earlier part seemed to be like more of a shortcut. I'm interested with these names. It's because one of the Black Saber was mentioned. Yeah, you can see how the Empire would definitely track that because there's only one of them. Um, we need a quick. Hopefully, I think he had an excuse planned, but oh yeah, so they're nearby the ship, so some of those earlier forces they've come back to probably help the pilot as he has the plan because he communicated all of that squadron earlier. And then he's highlighted where that one is. Okay, that's handy. Okay, Tesu just needs to fight off the best he can. And yeah, he does Yeah, because he's definitely not going to hold it any longer. Oh no. Yeah, he does much to shut down the whole system, even the doors too, so that gives them a lot more time as well. Yeah, I still really feel bad for him. Yeah, probably it's probably the like the the saddest ending. Yeah, because I remember everyone else pointing out about how the rest were just dead by explosives, which I can see how it would be a bit more samey. Um, yeah, because I guess they could have had like moments of being like how do we make him each different, how each ending kind of that be different, because casting the Jinn are easy. Ketubaso has his own one, and yeah, I guess if trying to make a difference, so yeah, one explosion was with the pilot was in, and then the other explosion was trying to get rid of the master switch, which also took down to Rut, and Bays was only getting shot at beforehand, so he probably would have been done anyway before yet another explosion. So yeah, I can see how it's. I guess it just goes to show like the power of the Empire and that, and how dangerous it was, and how lucky they were exploded there to like escape all of that terror until it gets to them. Um, yeah, so he doesn't make it, so that means yeah, episode 4 would have a new squadron leader, who is that I don't know. Oh, what's his face? No, I forgot his name. He was a guy who ended up on New Tricks, which is another show. That actor, I think he becomes like the new rebel leader. I forgot his name though. His character name. Um, yeah, I've completely forgot. Anyway, so these troopers most likely have come from within the planet somewhat. Yeah, because the shield's down. But yeah, these are like much high, these are like higher ranking shooters, aren't they? You know, there's less of them, but they're far more efficient. I also remember some people saying about how this music was kind of repetitive, to which I can see why, but it still tends, it's still memorable. Well, not to mention Jaws was only 2 notes, and granted there was a bit more variation, but it still works with what it does. Oh wow, he's managed to make it in the cover. Right, so he seems to know what he means by um, Brody's instruction then. Oh yeah, Krennic was updated earlier, so that's why he's on his way. Although, how do they get the lock unbolted? There must be um, like a backup Empire switch to open doors that have no power. Oh no, okay, it's another door. Okay. Wonder why there's like this door there. I think it probably would have like opened a bridge to then lead to a certain part of the tower, perhaps. But I'm a bit unsure. You know, why would it just be that window? Maybe it's there to like guide the others, or maybe look through the files closely, or maybe like a backup if they no, because they won't climb on a tower like this. Yeah, I'm a bit lost with the window. So at least the troopers are down. Anyway, so Trot is using his using his faith in the Force to get him through, and it works. Oh, it's a very impressive feat. And then yeah, so we just see what the place is like, and this is definitely the most reasonable switch. And then, oh yeah, now he's able to communicate with the. Oh yeah, so that is how he can communicate with those above. Okay, so it's not just the plans; it's also the communicating. But now Brady can do that. Oh yeah, I think Cassian Bob be only like bruised and knocked out. And granted, it's yeah, because yeah, I don't think that was just for Chura. I think after seeing him flick the switch, I think they were hoping to destroy it to um stop the transaction. But and it I think it is just once the switch is flicked, it's flicked. I don't think it can be unflicked from that point. So I can see why the pilot's still able to communicate. Now V's down. That's the second man down. Yeah, which is also like quite devastating. And so V's is going to put his faith in the Force to see how long he can last, and he does last quite well. Oh, that's a lot. Yeah, which is but it's requires a lot of courage. Makes you wonder why they didn't go for this earlier, but I think maybe they did need a good time to reposition, especially when the forces were going down. Yeah. Maybe I think it was just a moment of, we can't really shoot the shield down by a load of lasers alone. Um, yeah, quickly. And he knows what these plans are. Yeah, Jim would have mentioned them. Yeah, I wonder what ship that would have been doing in the meantime, because it surely would have been able to shoot as well as had that function. And yeah, I think he knows that he wasn't getting out of there, but there was like a small grin knowing that he could communicate, with those above. So yeah, now they can uh, help each other out with, not only the communicating but also the plan transferring. Yeah, now Radis is onto it. I think the others would have been communicated too, but Radis would have got there first. Yeah, if others wanted like more variation, then maybe he can just it could have been done with just shots alone, and he could have still had that moment right there. So yeah, sadly he's down here, which is a real shame. Also, not sure why that is opening and closing. Is that a because it's not exactly a defense? It's almost like a random air vent, or is it? Oh god, I don't. Oh, that's a really tight gap. Oh, sorry, that really tenses me. Yeah, so that surely would have been like reserved somewhere, yeah, because it's not shooting anywhere, so it's just like I don't know. Just imagine how like having a ship with this ability, and you just have to wait until you're called for, and it's a risky ship idea, but if it's handy for situations like this, then yeah, yeah. I say Andor season 2, make sure that ship's in there. You don't want to see how it can be useful in other situations. Oh yeah, there was a TIE fighter, then it comes to Jin at one point. Yeah, I wonder what that was about. I think there'll be a whole heap of future videos which explain what the early cuts of this film would have looked like. Yeah, and it still made it through despite constant tampering. Edward and uh, what's his name, the director. He clearly knows and understands this whole universe as well as the writers as well. Just let them do their job. just let like yes, the producers and the higher ups, yes, they would have like some knowledge, but if the if what this people are saying are are on like the right track, um then yeah, why not let them be? That's why the original solo directors were forced out. I think they would have made a far better solo film, because that because a lot of people are a bit mixed on that one. Anyway, so this I like this moment at least. Yeah, and what some people find it weird is that both Kathleen, they weren't like so maybe on episode 9, but when it came to episode 7 and even 8, they seemed to both go in the direction that Kathleen seemed to like it, but she was like, oh, Rogue One, you need like a lot of changes because I don't like this, not to mention what happened with Solo. So, or maybe Kathleen was more critical about the side stories, but at the same time, she still let Ryan create his casino planet and make Luke go all haywire, and I don't know. It's just incredibly inconsistent. She wanted this to have like edits, like I said, the final product seems to be rather good as it is, but why would you want to make edits to this? Just imagine like with all of those darker shots and when Krennic was on the beach at one point, why cut them out and alter the story and nearly um it's not to mention it's also kind of risky for oh yeah, so yeah, she's at the satellite, which will help send the signal up, and I don't know why it didn't explain in um all of this, because I think what she should have said is, we've got something that will take it down. Just say something subtly, not completely outline the plan. Because if she down and he makes it, and also get rid of the plan, that is kind of risky. And also, not to mention, I don't think Krennic's down. To might want to shoot it a couple more times. How was Jin going to reach that tower with Krennic in the way just then? Because she didn't know Cassian was going to make it. Um, Although Cassian, I think he should still continue shooting him. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's very reminiscent of episode 4. The look of the data then. And probably, I think that's probably symbolizing like Leia. Just hearing the information and knowing what to do with it. Yeah, I think that's what they're applying then. What would you do with this Death Star? Or do it on turret mode. So it's loaded with lasers. Maybe the Death Star could have had like forces like within it, because it did send off TIE fighters, as shown in episode 4. But yeah, Tarkin's like, we'll focus on this, and Vader's on his way, and he's taken quite some time, but it's kind of reasonable. He knows where Mustafire's at. Yeah, I don't know why they left Krennic alive. Maybe they wanted to be like, let Krennic like witness his failure, but and not to mention he gets killed by presumably his creation. I remember some people not liking Krennic at a point where probably like have Vader or Tarkin be the ones to facilitate this star thing, but not to mention episode 4 there's an empty seat which would have been Krennic's, and I think it and yeah, they know they're not going to make it as well, so yeah, very nice a moment of respect. Now they have the plans, off they go. And yeah, they probably needed time to reposition before going off. I think some do make it, but not so much of the rest. yeah, I think the Star Destroyer coming with about, I think that would have completely been like, oh no, 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 let's recalculate again quickly. Yeah, and yeah, not to mention, yeah, they're just yeah, mates at the end of the day. So yeah, so they're just giving each other, some sense of closure and comfort before it all goes. Yeah, because yeah, good, because imagine if they did kiss and that, I think there would have been like quite out of nowhere, but at least shows them progress and some kind of friendship, which is really nice compared to what they do in episode 8. Oh yeah, that's where they just like, oh, I'm going to go in there myself. To which, yeah, if the plans are like in one of the ships, then yeah, for him to go in there on his own, yeah, I can see that happening. Although would there not be any other like soldiers in the ship to come out with him? That might have been helpful, but maybe a lot of the fighters were just pilots to get rid of the fleet. Anyway, so that's the tower down, and despite the Death Star only um, shooting two things, it still shows off the power. They still had the weapon. What it did to Jeddah would have been a massive blow. And they've also had to destroy, their own Empire tower as well, to protect information. So there's a decent amount of exploring for how the Death Star is used, outside of Episode 4, etc. This is probably Vader's doing. I'm going to turn up the brightness for this because this scene is awesome. Now, granted, it does have Vader holding, lasers when he would have done that in Episode 5, but maybe in Episode 5, Han was just like shooting like quick enough for Vader to be like, oh, I'm just going to catch them rather than hold them, but yeah, regardless, yeah. He is, although Vader is kind of slow from time to time as well, but yeah, I think it was just wanting to make sure that guy was down, that's why he's still a bit slower. But not to mention, with all of the guards firing at him, it's really reasonable why he would have been, slowed down in that manner. And then he just grabs the ship with the force. No, not really. No. Yeah, that would have been so contradictory right then. So yeah, this connects episode 4 where he's like, oh yeah, we're still going to go after them. But instead of, oh, oh yeah, later on they do encounter the ship. Yeah, but it's just not right now. And then Leia's probably read it, called like the Death Star plans. And if she has been updated about the Death Star's weakness, um, then yeah, that's where she would have been like, um, yeah, oh yeah, so this is how we can win against the Empire. Sorry, it's a bit held up on that. I was just surprised that the film was over. Anyway, so I'm just going to go back to a couple of exchanges. Oh yeah, that was one of them. Okay, so this is the second day recording, and in between I've gone back to the conversations I wanted to go back to, especially with the two between Krennic and Tarkin, and then Cassian's speech later on. So yeah, thanks to looking back at them, so we learned that Tarkin leading the Death Star was some kind of plan from the get-go, which is, that's interesting. It just goes to show where that was planned, because I thought Tarkin was like, oh, now it's successful, I'm running it, but no, it was already an idea beforehand. And because I think the Emperor agreed to that, didn't he? I think that's what he said. And the although beforehand, and also Tarkin was talking about delays in that with the construction of the Death Star, and we can imagine what those delays would be. The rebels slowing down the Empire with all sorts. So yeah, it just makes you wonder what would have happened if the Death Star was finished sooner. That could be interesting. Maybe Andor season 2 might explore that, considering the Death Star's nearly completed. So yeah, that would be cool to see. And so yeah, and during that first exchange between them, Krennic was very I think he's like, not insecure isn't the right word, but considering how he's often been belittled by the higher ups, like Tarkin and Vader, he's like very keen to achieve something, and he's the kind of person who tries to over I guess overcompensate, especially with the way he was like treating the engineers, and also how he confronted Jin's family at the start. He tries to because whilst he's very good at controlling the situation, especially on his own, I think a part of him wishes that that's what more of what he was like. Because even when talking to Vader, he was like, "Oh, I'm still in charge, aren't I?" And so yeah, I think not only is he being belittled loads of times, but I think he does get quite insecure from time to time. But despite the insecurity, he does maintain a lot of presence, and is does is quite reflecting from time to time. And I will go back to him actually, because I don't want to jump to character analysis just yet. But anyway, so Cassian's speech, so that too I really like, because because Cassian talks about how the likes of him and the others, they were doing different occupations before joining the Rebel Alliance. Just using all of that skill set for something far greater. And just like a really nice moment for him. And I think that we do see more of the context of in the show, because he works with all sorts of people, and we do see some of them that have their own devious skill sets, but yet try and use it to benefit the Rebel Alliance. So yeah. Anyway, so now let's start properly concluding. And I think there's probably a couple of bits and bobs I've missed, and because I try to as much as possible, especially when as I connect the dots, try and find any contradictions or bits and bobs like that. And whilst I haven't really spotted contradictions, I just more so found only a couple of moments that I was like, wait, hang on. So there is bits and bobs like that, which I definitely spotted over time, and I tried to figure out how it might work with a through line. But I think that's up for discussion. But I think it is a relatively strong film. This is because everyone puts the OT on top, to which I can see, and then the prequels, they do have their strong points. So if putting the 6 films up there, Rogue One is definitely up there somewhere, because not only is it written with a lot of care, even despite the reshoots, it has like quite a great amount of respect for the fictional universe. And this was also probably the first film or TV to help connect both the OT and prequels together, because when you watch Revenge of the Sith at the end, and you see the ship with the white corridors and the Death Star construction, and that's where it's like a starting point of how it can go from like the prequel onto the OT, in like a stylish kind of way, because a lot of the prequels kind of uses its own style, especially when exploring various royal areas, and also like various other planets owned by like the Separatists, for instance. So it does have like its own style, but then it does have like moments where it has looks like like Rouge has like a similar style to the OT later on. But yeah, in Rogue One, however, we do see Coruscant in the background at one point, and yeah, so I feel like that's like a rather good starting point, and yeah, even when looking at Jeddah, it's like especially the city, it has like similar architecture to Tattoo with all the buildings, but at the same time, it kind of partially reminded me a bit of Black Geonosis, with because that was in the forts occasionally, and not to mention the factory. That it was like all metallic in a way that the Radiant planet was like. I'm not talking about Camino. I'm talking about is it called AUE or something? EU, something like that. The Radiant planet in Rogue One, where Jin finally gets to see Galen. So yeah, there's just like moments like that where you start. Not to mention seeing Leia's dad as well. I can't believe I don't remember his name, but yeah, I think having him around as well just goes to show. Oh yes, I remember him from the prequels. I can start to see how both the OT and the prequels definitely belong together, because we knew what the cynical outlook was like back then, and I think a lot of people were like this when watching the prequels, it doesn't have like that similar feel to the OT. And whilst I can understand that, it is exploring different areas, and it's an era that takes place in the past, so it is very likely would feel different, because the OT, it has you're in the Millennium Falcon, which is like a rusty ship from time to time, and then you see where the kind of bases the rebels settle out, which is all aged and worn over time. And then when you do see like the vehicles in the prequels, for instance, a lot of it's very pristine and clean, and of course it would, because a lot of it would be royalty and that. You get the idea. And whilst a lot of the Star Wars shows are, they're definitely hit and miss a lot of the time, but at least there are like moments where just try more emphasis, making the OT and the prequel era like belong together, where it's like the vehicles or the planets and the references and that. It just really helps, and I think that's something that's one like somewhat good thing that's come out of like the recent media, but we all know what we think of it nowadays, with Kathleen no longer around. I think we kind of wish that the likes of Gareth Edwards and the writers, they could be like the new heads, make sure everything's in line. But I think we would all prefer it if they stick to the whole filmmaking kind of things. Give the time they need to create films like Rogue One and shows like Andor. And because I recently heard that season 2, there won't be a season 3 of Andor, which is a bit of a shame. But at the same time, he does have a somewhat smaller story. Seeing him from his adulthood and then seeing the end of his story in this film, then that's you can see why it's smaller. But I just hope the likes of Gareth and the others would do more, because they could probably single-handedly, not repair everything, but at least a good amount to at least reignite the interest again. And it kind of reminds me of Matt Reeves almost, because because we all like his filmography a lot, and what he did for the Apes trilogy, that was extremely cool. And I don't know how much involvement he did for Kingdom. Did he do like a producer role, or did he write the screenplay then? I'm not sure. I don't know how much he was involved in that one, but that was still rather good, regardless if it was done by another team. But I also really like Matt's approach with the Batman, because I was a bit like unsure at first, because Ben Affleck was still around, and I still wanted the like the way the universes are connecting. But not only is James Gunn could have a go with that, which will be interesting. But if Matt is going to do more with whether it's just the Batman cast, or maybe add more of his own DC um, characters in there, that could be cool. But yeah, it's just just seeing how they approach it and how in line it is from time to time. Yeah, just kind of wish they stick to those projects to do more of it. But they probably have a whole heap of other stories to tell and other films to direct. So yeah, so that was a bit of a ramble, that was. But yeah, anyway, let's continue. Concluding Rogue One. So yeah, and because whilst it despite the reference in the prequels a couple of times, whether it's like one of the characters and the locations, a couple of other references. It is very like reminiscent to the OT. Like when I'm watching this, back again now, I can somewhat still imagine like a 70s version of this. Like I can still see that happening. Um, and because for us, I can remember with the Star Wars look, but going from the OT anyway, like because the holograms have their own way of with what they look like. You have holograms of people, and when they see like their transparent screens, they look like something that helps with strategy or maybe like analysis of certain galactic maps. And then a lot of the buttons are switches and that. So there's no, because Iron Man has his interacting holograms, but there's none of that here. There's like the buttons and switches. So that's like that's already obeying the style and how the technology works, for a start. And the screens have like a glitchiness to it, and then there's like a pristine look every now and again, because when as I'm saying, I'm just rewatching the film in the background, and when seeing Jim confronted, you can see how the area's a bit like dirty and grimy on the walls, but then you do have one or two pieces of technology every now and again, to at least show some kind of I guess how it's like tied to because when seeing Mon Mothra, like is she royal? I don't know. I don't think so. But I think it just further shows how much funding it was alongside all of that technology and the ships and that, and and a lot of the vehicles we see are very familiar as well. The only like newer ship we see is the one that the Rogue One team first use. I think that probably might be an already existing ship. If not, it's probably come from like the expanded books or something, or maybe another ship design that wasn't used in the OT and then reused again, something like that. And then because then if I just go forward a bit and just see what the ship looks like, it kind of reminds me of a prequel ship almost. Because it has because it has like a quirkiness to it, and it's a lot more shiny and silver, so which how it kind of represents how it's like half royal in that case. It's it's quite cool. And then it has this feature where the wings go out and about. It looks like the wings are spread when it first lift up, and then it straightens when going into light speed. So and that's how it shows that function in that way, because these Star Wars ships, if designed well, they there is like more purpose to it. That's where when you look at the behind the scenes, the way they designed the ships, they wanted to make it look like you could see of how it was made and what each feature does. And it is of course, like rather neat to see the other classic ships. I just remember at a time when people used to accuse it of being a fan service, but no, it's just accurate to the era, and it's just because of with the Force Awakens, with how many references it was doing. And some people were like, wait, hang on, this is like 30 years later, how come the ships are still the same? Well, most of them. I guess some are like well upgraded, because post X-Wing is well, that just has like a different look, and the Star Destroyers in the Force Awakens anyway, that apparently has some differences, although that I don't remember. But you're not to mention when just seeing all of the ships in action, and because when watching that final battle, it is very reminiscent of Return of the Jedi, where just get to a certain point. Let's go back there. You do start to see everyone's roles. Like, granted, there are like a couple of moments where, for instance, with the X-wings, no, sorry, the Y-wings, where they were, doing that run of firing those stun-based torpedoes. I guess I did wonder, like why they didn't do that earlier. But like I said, I think it could have been, trying to reform it. Not to mention, they would have they came. Well, the rest of the rebels came to the battle a lot later anyway, and but despite wondering about a couple of bits and bobs like that, but it's just those space battles are like a proper highlight, and the way the camera follows you through a lot of the ships, it has like a proper like realism to it. And there's been like a couple of attempts I've seen with like the other products, but I just feel like it's just with how I think the way it's shot, you can really like see the scale in that, so especially when and you can just feel the weight and the speed of these vehicles. It's just something that's paid more attention to here, which is extremely cool. And and as well as seeing how the ships battle, we see how the Empire respond, and of course they would have loads of TIE fighters, and and then Admiral Raddus, they lead those ships as additional support, such as the communication. So you see how a lot of it works, and it's done with purpose, which is extremely cool. It's not just a dogfight; it's adding more to it as well. And and also when just going through the planets as well. I think firstly I've already described the look of Jeddah, but when you look at the raining planet, and then Scarif, is it Scarif? I think it is. Now those are both like relatively barren and natural looking planets, but they are like built on, and that's like kind of reminiscent of the planet Endor, where despite being a natural area, there's like these metallic structures that almost like slapped on, just really showing how the Empire is just pretty much like anywhere at any point. So it has that kind of look, and with the metallic look these buildings have, and even Darth Vader's castle kind of has that metallic look with the shapes and the angles, and the greyish colours, and the and these square lights. They're always like white or red, and and the way it's carried over, it's that I really like. It just goes to show that start really paying attention to previous architecture and really carrying it over, because the prequels did that occasionally, but once again it was just its own style, because in the lower grounds of Coruscant, it's very Art Deco, and Camino was very like smooth and almost like an ambient occlusion render, and like in Autodesk Maya more specifically, and what else is there? And the Wookiee planet has like a lot of the wooden structures, like even that would be similar to I guess that would be similar to the Ewok architecture in some way, except the Ewoks they had like tree houses and like a lot of ropey bridges, and it looks like the Wookiee planet had a lot more like stronger wooden structures, and probably some couple of instances of metal to assist. And this is I think because when you first watch the original trilogy, like you would you wonder how long the Death Star's been up there, and considering when Rogue One takes place, it means that the Death Star it to destroy Jeddah, and then it shot the tower on Scarif, and then then it destroyed. I had the plan in my hand earlier. What's it called? Alderaan. That's it. Then it did that, and because I think there would have been. It's not. Rogue One doesn't immediately happen before Episode 4. I think there's like maybe a couple of days at most. So it means that the Death Star's like up in the sky for not the longest amount of time, but in Episode 4, if you remember, Darkin was saying how the was dissolving the Senate, which means that that's where everyone's like silenced and not going to confront the Empire in any way, which and so yeah, despite the Death Star being up there, the presence is clear, and well, I guess not only clear, but it's just like very present, and yeah, it does well with what the Empire wants, the intimidation to keep everything in control, because yeah, even Rogue One talks about how like a couple of cases of the Senate's been in the way, but with the Death Star up, it well, not only silenced the galaxy, but it also it nearly put off the rebels from continuing, which yeah, that is quite interesting. Oh yeah, also not to mention, when looking at Jeddah now, there's even more similarities to Tatooine with the domey buildings on top, with that smooth semicircle on top of the buildings sometimes. So yeah, even if it's a different planet, to carry over that similar kind of look, yeah, I quite like that. Yeah, just so it adds to the similarities, and yeah, and we do get that more of the rebels do, especially when they go into these big communities, and when we see everyone around the table, it looks like it wasn't just the rebel soldiers. It looks like there's other like parties or and like other political figures involved, just trying to plan all sorts, because this rebel alliance, it isn't just a load of armed men. It's it's a whole collection of perspectives, like strategist and Momothra being there, too. Like we did get that a bit in Return of the Jedi, because she was there amongst a couple of other people, and yeah, even because when you watch the start of Episode 5 and then Episode 4, that was just the those who mainly fought in those battles, but yeah, to get even to see who else gets involved, yeah, it just helps to expand more on that side of things, which is rather cool. And yeah, what else is there? Oh yeah, and we do have like some grey areas explored, because because once again, if well, I guess the prequels had like like the moments where either side have their own moral grey areas from time to time, but this Rogue One, however, it's like it's the familiar OT approach, but it has either side. There's some that clearly yeah, they definitely represent of what each side are like, but then you have Cassian, who he has his own way of doing things, and even the rash orders he was given, and just like questioning them, they just go to show the rebels were willing to do very extreme acts in order to to make sure the Empire doesn't go any further, which yeah, so there's like a like that grey area there, and not to mention the Empire, it wasn't just Galen. It looks like the engineers were they've probably just gone along with it, and they seemed innocent enough as well, which makes us feel bad when they all get fired down. But yeah, Galen, I don't, he definitely didn't like what was going to be achieved later on, and so he tried to leave, only to be forced back in again. So he's forced to assist against his will, and splitting the family apart, which yeah, and that does show more of how sinister the Empire is, and and there's other moments as well. The Empire was willing to destroy a whole tower of information to prevent it from getting out, despite the leak already being successful. And um, it's just you just see how both sides make a lot of decisions, and I feel like it's just it is like very similar to Andor, where it does present the rebels as very like small in scale, whole just like a smaller collection of people trying to overcome a massive entity. But the massive entity, the Empire, is not only extremely large, but it's like extremely sinister as well, and very strict with its rules. And you can see that they definitely want a sense of order, but at the same time they take advantage a lot, which is it does really add to them. And I remember some people stated about how the stormtroopers are probably at their most like least intimidated, like, because I can see why, because they do get blown up and knocked away a good few times. But I think you do still have the other forces, like the vehicles and the black stormtroopers and the beach troopers, because you can see how they do well. But sorry, just losing my breath. But yeah, despite that, the stormtroopers, they still react accordingly, because they do try and shoot at K2S the minute they go to the corridors, once he was starting to get fired at. And with some of them still trying to shoot from afar, they still act smartly. But yeah, it's just they're just the most knocked about foes in this universe, aren't they? But at least you still have the other soldiers who I would be actually quite hesitant to face them. And the same can be said with like all of the higher up characters. Even the Emperor only gets a mention, but you can just imagine how annoyed he would be with all of those delays. Like, I can feel like I can sense that pressure because of how much the entity's like been slowed down. And sorry, just let's get my breath back. 1 second. Yeah, so I think I was just getting excited. Yeah, okay. And and also like a quick thing, and it does like a lot of like character for the universe as well, because if you watch like the both OT and the prequels, you would naturally wonder, what's part of the lightsaber making process, and how did the Death Star source its lasers, and it's confirmed with the kyber crystals. And even if they were like more like hinted at the start, it does show how the Empire just helping themselves to collect it, because it won't be just Jeddah. Even if it is probably like a primary source, it will probably be other planets as well, and it's probably like the last chance to collect the lot before because I think the Death Star would have had a lot anyway. But they'll probably definitely would have even more after scavenging from from Jeddah. And because unless I'm wrong, because did the Empire like literally use all the kyber to source it on the Death Star, like as like one way to stop lightsaber creation? Well, if anything, they probably would have helped create the Inquisitors. So there is that. So it is, so very subtly the Empire repurposed kyber. It's not just the Jedi lightsabers. They would definitely no longer be a thing. Maybe there could be like some rogue Jedi going out and about and probably creating new lightsabers. I can see that happening. And so that was just another cool thing that's explored. And then you do have a lot of the blasters are kind of familiar and work in similar ways, but then you have Jin has a baton, which is like a very simple weapon. But I think with the way it looks, I'm even looking at it right now, it does look like has like some similarities to the weapons, with like the rims around the handle and that. So there is that. And there's Baze, who has like a machine gun. You get to see what a bigger laser gun looks like. And and yeah, and once again it has that like rusty look on the weapons. So there's moments like that which help it look like make it look like a it does almost look like part of a ship turret. A Baser's weapon does. So there is that as well, which is kind of neat. And oh yeah, not to mention K2SO's design, because not gonna lie, it kind of reminds me of the Death Star at some parts because of how circular and how it's like made up of rims like occasionally. So there's those like bits and bobs that help make K2SO look like a pretty decent design. And once again, you can just see how he functions. Some of his electronic parts, and yeah, and he shares some similarities to C3PO, because you get to see some of the how he connects as well. So yeah, so that yeah, I do really like. And not to mention K2SO has the similar the R2D2 thing. Yeah, how they interact with the machinery. Yeah, to have that as well, that's like a really neat detail. And yeah, so yeah, I do really like yeah, all of the worlds. Like yeah, I know people used to make jokes about how he visited a lot, and whilst it was like a bit sporadic too, hop from one to another, but not only were they reasonable, like for instance when seeing Cassian's introduction, like where else could he have gone, and not to mention Jin's family. Yeah, like yes, they would have gone to more of a barren planet. But once we hop onto Yavin 4 and then settle a large amount of time of Jeddah, which we do learn on about, yeah, you do not only see the purpose of the planets within the story, but of how it does add to this universe in some way. Because even the raining planet, once again, that's like a barren world, somewhere quite rocky and quite dangerous, and helps the research facility become more hidden. And then Scarif, despite being out in the open, well, it is at least like of course it was well defended. It has like the gate in that because yeah, it wasn't just Endor that had that large amount of security. Yeah, the other planets like Scarif would be well defended too. I guess it makes you wonder why they didn't do that for the research facility, but maybe it is because of the weather and the rocks, and not to mention they had ship sensors. Unless you were because you either get sensed high up in the air and shot quite earlier on, or you stay down low to the rocks where you're most likely going to get hit. So that's already like well defended. And yeah, and then we'll move on to a lot of the clothing I like too, because a lot of them, like Baze for instance, he wears like a massive like a hefty, heavy pilot suit almost, like an all-in-one kind of clothing, which is kind of reminds me of the rebel pilot uniform, that kind of baggy look. And yeah, and then when you look at the jackets, a lot of they share a lot of similar colours like black and brown and grey, and then you have like stripes at certain places, and a lot of it is aged as well. So yeah, because I think you get that kind of idea when in episode 4 in Tatooine you can see how a lot of them are dressed there, and that kind of carries over. But not to mention you do have a good portion of those who were talking at the meeting, and then how they're all wearing more pristine clothing because of how like wealthy they are. And even the Empire, because I remember thinking how could we see like a imperial officer wandering around Naboo for instance, and but with the how the imperial officers look, once again it is that its own kind of pristine kind of royalty. It's like very plain, but at the same time it's very yeah, it's just like extremely straightforward. And I guess they do stand out as a very uh I guess like very military heavy. They're a collection of people, whilst when you like look at other clothing styles across the galaxy, it's very like expressive of their culture. But the Empire is almost like intentionally quite vague looking, especially with like the singular colours. And even if there is like some design bits and bobs, such as like the stormtroopers looking black and white, and then the black troopers are all black, and like it's very like very select colours are chosen, and um and yeah, it carries over that plain military look, which once again just further makes them stand out as their own entity, and how they're just like they can just really trample on any ground they come across. And yeah, because the logos are used quite often as well. More so the Imperial logo, I see that quite a bit from time to time. And yeah, because the binoculars, we see how they're doing, and how what the holographic screens are like. Yeah, we see that, and those Baser's taser, which is an extension of the technology, and we also see how ships, another way how ships can communicate, and even the rebels having, although, oh yeah, that's what we saw in episode 4. That's some computers anyway, but we can see what they do. When they're not in a bigger battle, you just see what else they do, and it looks like they do search around for reports. It's very reminiscent of those code breakers in World War II. So, I mean, that's what that's a. I think that's what it would be referencing. Like if you weren't in battle, would be assisting in that kind of manner. And as we've seen it, it's helped them loads of times, especially with how they managed to capture the news about the attack on Scariff. Um, so they've used technology. A lot of it's familiar, and the rest of it is just something that you can infer. And even Andor does expand on that, because you have the because with the way the prison was designed, it has that pristine look of like almost like the Death Star's corridors in somewhat, but white, and have electric floors. Like a very neat idea. And not to mention that sound device that lady got hold of, which made her like it's just like extremely worn out with the audio technology she was forced with. Yeah, that was very rash. That was, yeah, like wow, it does really just show the Empire will just do anything to get what they want, even if it means going for forceful methods like that. And so yeah, we talked about the world's technology, the star, the clothing. Just all around very reminiscent of the OT, with a bit of the prequels sprinkled in every now and again. But yeah, we'll talk more about the characters, I say. Like Vader's used very sparingly, and of course it would be cool to see him more so, but once again, it is just knowing where to place your cards correctly, because even if you do have access, you still want to use them in a way that's sensible yet satisfying at the same time. Because when seeing Vader, you see what he does in his spare time, and when he gets involved, of course he would get involved, especially when talking being like, oh yes, we'll handle all of that. Vader has his own role once he gathers the other Empire forces. And and we do show Vader, he's always been cynical of the Death Star from the beginning, and when and it was the Senate, just like wondering what to do about it, and Vader saying, we have to chalk it up as a mining disaster, to which expands more on how they had their stories somewhat. And yeah, not in the corridor scene, it is really fantastic, because you could say, how come it's just we already know these things. Vader was slowed down by the amount of fire. Like even if he is very good at deflecting those lasers, he still has to concentrate. And we all know that he's less mobile compared to an average fighter. But and not to mention, his force abilities, they don't go too far. I mean, you already see the how impressive his abilities are. He holds the laser, he disarms multiple guns at once, and the way he just shoots a person up in the corridor. Yeah, that already shows a good amount of raw power without going too far. Not like grabbing ships or ripping through the corridors or doors. Yeah, because in the OT, even if he did have these impressive feats, they didn't go too far. And yeah, so they kept a lid on with that, which is extremely cool. And yeah, and both and then if we go on to Krennic and Tarkin, they're both are like higher ups with the whole military side of things, and because Tarkin would have not only be extremely experienced, but it looks like he is close to the Emperor in some way, because he was already given a role to with the Death Star, and I think thanks to his confidence and his knowledge, he's already climbing up the ranks or positions extremely easily. But it looks like Krennic has to work really hard for it, and he still continues to be belittled and that. But yeah, not to mention, oh yeah, because the Death Star was somewhat. I think Krennic would have had. Oh no, because it was Count Dooku who had the. He was given the. Oh, and one of the. So yeah, one of the separatist teams, or all of the the allies of it. They had like a holographic blueprint for the Death Star, so that would have been an idea, and I think Krennic must have helped, more of the development of it. So because I think he would be around during the prequel era. Would have been 19 years earlier. Um, because when Tarkin was like, oh, Krennic looks like that was a success. It just looks like Krennic like helped facilitate more of the production, unless was it? I don't think that was as much about the Death Star production. I think it was just more so of how it's used, or even if the weapon is still functional. Because I think that because I think when you get delayed loads of times, it just makes you wonder. Oh, is this thing even going to work in the first place? Is it going to do as we assisted? And when because I think, unless I'm wrong, because was going for Jeddah Krennic's idea as well, and then just to manage to go for that city alone, it yeah, like I said, a couple of wrong. Yeah, it's just me once again trying to connect the dots, and yeah, and both do have they come to their own conclusions in their own ways, and they think very thoroughly, because especially with because yeah, it just goes to show more about how experienced Tarkin is, because Krennic's like, oh, if the pilot was already down there, and if there's no witnesses about, of course they'll be fine, and Tarkin will be like, nah, not when he was already sent by someone else in the first place, and then that's where they all take a step back, and they're like, okay, let's just go to the research facility, considering that's where the pilot came from, and it's a planet that the pilot was already kind of familiar of. And not to mention, at the start, Tarkin said yet another cargo pilot, which means something like that must have happened before, not only with Galen, but other defectors as well. And it looks like the pilot was just lucky enough to go as far as he did. And yeah, and despite the hero's successes, they really had to fight through, escaping the Death Star laser, and the heavy amount of um, military work, and yeah, and they don't make it in the end, which is really just quite refreshing to still achieve their goal, but at the cost of their lives, which is just explores how far you can go to achieve something, and not only win, not being able to win everything, and not to mention the Death Star was once like invincible at one point, despite how far they've got. Sorry, no breath again. And so yeah, and Krennic was definitely presented as not only like a foe of Galen, but to Jin as well, despite Galen and Krennic having a lot more history, um, and yeah, you could definitely see the difference between them, because Jin and Galen, they, and we'll include the mum as well. They they all have that care for one another, and they always want to do the right thing. They want to defend each other, and they have like a sense of trust in each other as well. And and then Krennic, he's just he's like presented to be quite isolated a lot. There's not really a moment where they're like, oh, Krennic, you're fantastic, you're like a great dude. And yeah, there's like none like that. They're either just talking at him or they're just simply following his orders. And because even the way Krennic commands, it's like almost in a desperate manner, almost as if he's trying to compensate. Because he's almost got nothing to lose. He wants to continue, being like a higher rank as he is. But once again with Tarkin, the way he states orders and commands, he just does it very calmly yet firmly. He already has that confidence and presence, but Krennic doesn't quite have that. So the way he, gets like all flustered and frustrated, he just creates like a different, different type of dynamic. And yeah, because I know that Vader and Tarkin, they didn't really have those that were like really connected with them, but at least they were like respected, and they did obviously they do have the ways of confronting people, but once again they're just they already know they're the boss. But with Krennic, once again he just has to almost like completely lose his mind to make sure like nothing is lost, because I think that's the other thing as well, because Vader and Tarkin, they're very confident with what they are, what they have a tight grip with. But with Krennic, he's he doesn't know if he's going to succeed or not a lot of the time, and a lot of his successes just lead to I don't know, just end up being compromised. And because even if he did find out it was Galen, he sadly gets shot down later on, where he could have been kept for additional information, and Galen was also involved in a research facility being attacked as well, and that too he got the blame for. So he just can't do anything without things going wrong, which yeah, and so yeah, and also, and then when Jin does have like his revenge against Krennic in the end, yeah, just it is just very satisfying. It's not only avenged Galen, but Jin helped continue with Galen's goal to make sure that the Death Star no longer exist eventually. And just very inspiring that way. And just seeing Krennic completely outdone, and once again Jin shouldn't have been like, oh, we did this specific thing and this is how you're going down. Whilst I was a bit mixed about that, you could see how Krennic, once again he just more suffered possibly the biggest loss. The Death Star plans have been leaked, and the battle was almost like a loss despite the many rebels going. So yeah, and what else could be said about him? Well, he's very intimidating. He is a good shot as well. Nearly got hold of Cassian, and yeah, and his clothing is rather cool as well. Because yeah, I think that's what Endor also explored. There's, I think those who, I think those who were higher up in their own way, they have the that whiter clothing, that's looks even more pristine and has these extra features. Not only the capes, but there's these extra parts as well to probably display more of their experience, and probably represents different ranks as well. So yeah, it's just the kind of style explored, which is rather cool. And so yeah, that's the villains, and obviously we don't see a lot of Jin's mum, but she trusts Jin enough to look after herself, and she tries to defend Galen by having a gun against Krennic, and she does manage to shoot despite her going down. So yeah, I think she was characterized enough before she was down. So yeah, I did like her, and there was an interesting dynamic where Krennic was almost like the nice boss with the family, as shown in the Coruscant flashback. But of course, that would have gone sinister over time. So there's even more layers to how they all know each other. And Galen's also like fantastic as well. For once, Mads Madison, he's not playing a bad guy. He plays someone who, you know, he almost like crumbles because of the many hard choices he has to make, and when he tries to get on with things. But despite like a lot of the fear and the hesitancy he has, some of the time he tries to maintain a strong sense of confidence, and you can see that both with how he presents himself, how he talks, and because despite being smacked by a Krennic and he was saying you're not going to win, you can see there's like a stronger side to Galen that's not going to be outdone no matter what's thrown at him. And yeah, we've already discussed how the death, the episode 4's plot hole is almost like fixed in some way, with that being a intentional um design feature. But yeah, once again, I'm just wondering like what the Empire would have wanted at the time. But I guess we can assume that Galen would be like, oh, probably just helps with the exhaust, because this space station needs to exert energy or waste somehow. Who knows? Maybe like carbon dioxide. Oh, I don't know. Carbon dioxide, oxygen. I don't know. So yeah, like I think I would have liked a hint of that, but for that to be acknowledged, and also Galen just represents someone who, yeah, I've already talked about. You know, like happy to work at first, but then when trying to leave, he falls back in, and how he tries to defend his colleagues as well. So there is a good amount of layers to him, and also similar to Jin, his words get denied. And whilst unlike Jin, she's having like people throw just like just a whole sense of disbelief back in her face. Galen doesn't really have that. He just gets intimidated by the likes of Krennic, just being talked down to, and also similar to Jin. And yeah, and also once again, yeah, Galen doesn't. Yeah, he just takes the losses and he keeps going regardless. And yeah, he doesn't have a lot of screen time, but it's just like that. Yeah, a lot of moments of him. So yeah, and yeah, and once again, despite the limited screen time, and once it kind of would have been nice to see what the family dynamic was first. Like, I guess you can somewhat see that in the Coruscant flashback, but I think if we did get more of a sense of what they were like together before they were all split off, I think that would have strengthened it more so, which would have made it more devastating when Galen dies. But you can tell that he cares for Jin, even at a point where he uses the time to with the collar, sorry. How many times have I lost my breath again? About the third or fourth time. Oh, yeah, I think I was planning on doing voice acting for something, and yeah, I'm not doing a very good job if I'm losing my breath like that. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, because he must have had a limited amount of Galen, he must have had a limited amount of time for that holographic holographic message, and whilst he does manage to say all of the useful bits even before getting cut off by the Death Star laser, he still has moments of saying, oh, Jin, I've always cared for you, what I've done, was to protect you, and still think about you and your mum all the time. So yeah, to like squeeze that in a limited time kind of message, to just I think that really shows how much he cares, and I really like their miniature reunion as well. Miniature, well, just despite how small it is, yeah, you do feel somewhat devastated for Jin in some way, and I think we'll might as well hop on to Jin next. So yeah, once again, these characters are not devoid of traits. Like, granted, I can see why these characters are probably like a tad more mundane, but at the same time, but if it's like a more serious kind of story, then and yeah, it just can't see the story this way. Like, granted, we do have a robot that has quips, but that's already established. And I guess when you watch or both the OT and the sequel trilogy, the characters are very youthful, and and I think people off when it comes to adventure shows, to like characters with a more outspoken personality, hence why they have thought, um, um, yeah, because I think films like Rogue One, they're not like it just requires more of your attention to um, just figure out for yourself, and because I think it would have been one thing if you if you're watching a character with a mundane personality, you like wonder, okay, I wonder why they're acting like that. What else are we going to learn about them? And if you don't get like any satisfying answers later on, that's where you can be like, oh, okay. But in Rogue One, however, with Jin, she started as a child who has to hide from Krennic, and then relate and with seeing Saw, goes to show that Jin is um grow up with those who were very involved with either faction really, because Saw he has his own group of the rebels, and Galen is forced into the Empire, and then we see Jin's locked up, and she becomes quite dismissive when she gets confronted, and even when she was because even when they were like, oh, help us with this, or you can or you can just be locked up again, but if you do succeed, then you're free to go, and Jin kind of maintains that serious look. But I think, did they think, oh, Jin should be happy that there's an opportunity for freedom, but I think but if but Jin is later established to um not be like fully into the cause, because it um yeah um sorry, let me just take a breath again. Oh yes, anyway, yes, because as we later find out, Jin, she isn't like too fully in the cause, and enough, and if you're like in the presence of like the higher ups in the rebels, you're not really allowed to be gleeful, because that's a bit informal, but not to mention, but Jin would would have that kind of reluctant side to her, being like, oh, do I like really have to do this, and she seems to be willing to do it, especially with preparing herself for Jeddah, especially with the blaster later on. But I think it is just seeing why she isn't like very respond. Yeah, and so after seeing those moments from Jin, that's where when walking around Jeddah, she's very like wary of her surroundings, and when talk to Chiro, there is like a tad more enthusiasm from her there, being like, oh yeah, I know what archival crystals are, and then once the action starts kicking in, she's treats the situation seriously, and she's very good in her combat, and yeah, and then when getting grabbed hold of by Saul's men, she has a bit of authority in herself to be like, oh, I'm Galen's daughter, please, I need to go and see Saul. So she's able to control the situation of her own in some way, and then she becomes confident enough to confront Saul. And then once Saul's like, oh, then there's this message, and then once she sees the message, because beforehand, not only is she like really fed up with the cause, and she's probably had like a very repetitive and very serious life, not a very um just not like the most entertaining childhood. And I've had the Cassian, hence why he's not as youthful compared to, because Luke Skywalker, even he at least had like a fairly peaceful upbringing, with just his uncle and aunt, and um and yeah, I think we'll just go straight onto the message. So yeah, and once she sees the message, she does get more emotional. Then just seeing our dad was like after so many years, and after being reminded that because I think with how young she was, she didn't really understand much of this situation nor come to the conclusion that oh wait, hang on, no, because because even the parents were like, oh, please say you understand, and she's like, yes, I understand. But I think when you're gone without them for so many years, not to mention being abandoned by the likes of, well, Saw temporarily for, just being like left alone. I think that's where you're like, oh, why should I bother? But it's not only Galen's message. Even Saw was like, oh, I did, hide you to protect you. It wasn't anything malicious, and so she comes to that kind of understanding, and then that's where she then becomes more motivational, being like, okay, so we got this information, been reignited by Galen in some way, to kind of get back into action again, something I can definitely go for. Because I think she definitely would like to reunite with Galen, but at the same time, they have some information, and she needs, well, she wants to, her own freedom, as she does this favour from the rebels. So, there's a bit more layers to what she wants to go for, and yeah, then she takes it upon her. Well, I think she does let the others, do their role, especially Cassian, who's more of the leader. But once Chirrut was like, wait, hang on, I just sense this, and that's where Jin thought, oh, better start Cassian. So she definitely, wants to. Oh yeah, of course she would want to defend Galen, so she makes her own choice to go out and about, and then she makes it all this way to try and see Galen. I think the reason she tried to shout for him is, I think just like to go away to try and save him, try and find a way to catch up, maybe even go with him. That could be something. So I think any of those conclusions will work. I think I'll play that scene in the background just to try and see what she was trying to do. And yeah, but also there was the X thing, which would have been responsible for Galen's death, but that she still has the knowledge. She's been reaffirmed once again, after seeing Galen, and yeah, it does become less about, oh, I want my own freedom. I actually want to succeed this because of my dad. I don't want him to, die for nothing. That's something he can definitely imply, and yeah, with all that knowledge she has, she gets talked down to by the others. She gets refused to listen to. First, kind of initially by the Rogue One team, despite not being given that name yet. But yeah, everyone else dismisses her, and it's not just her not being believed. It's the Death Star is that powerful enough to completely scare everyone off, because you never know, their base will just be simply shot at. The Death Star can go through hyperspeed after all, and yeah, and then that's where Cassian gives her yet another boost of confidence, and Cassian also like gain, she trusts Jim more at a point where he gives her the glance, being like, shall I light it? Do you agree? And she's like, yes, just light the explosives up on Gareth's, and yeah, and they're both bond to become like quite a good duo, especially with how they work their way through getting the Death Star plans, and yeah, and with how much time she spends with Cassian, they're both grow to care with one another, and because we've seen Cassian like connect quite well with those he works with for a long time, especially when we see a lot of that in the first season, and probably more so in the second season as well, because yeah, they're both yes, Cassian did have his adoptive mum, what was her name again? Fiona Shaw, that's it, yeah, because even despite being brought up eventually for the rest of his childhood by Fiona Shaw, but they did seem like kind of distant. I will need to rewatch the show again, but yeah, he did. He had like moments of being standoffish, especially with the what he was growing up with, with the Empire constantly looking around. And so yeah, like Jin and Cassian, though, they're people that like, yes, they do their own deeds, but they don't have I think against one another that seems untrusting, because even Cassian confirmed that oh yes, I did have orders to follow, but I didn't do it in the end. And so there's that kind of understanding as well. And yeah, despite how heated the argument was, all of that is clarified. And but yeah, like their dynamic goes from that to Cassian being like, oh yeah, Jin, well, if none of us, none of them are going to continue jabbing the Empire, then we can, we'll go to Scarif. And yeah, I feel like there probably might be something in there, but I think regardless, just knowing what information they have and what they need to do, and yeah, so they become far more proactive, even at a point where yeah, they just leave the rebel planet. Like, granted, I don't know, yeah, yeah, a bit of a head scratcher for why they're able to leave so like so freely then, and why it was a bit of a shock to the others. But I guess the likes of Momothra must have been like still indoors and just probably contacting a lot, being like, "Oh, the rebels are over," until it isn't. And so there is like moments like that, which I think I would have liked to be clarified more. Um, so yeah, like it is just like very simple steps, because when you look at I guess like Lucas comparison episode 4, he he talks about how he dislikes the Empire. He yearns deep exploration. He's had a pretty decent upbringing, and he gets very curious of Obi-Wan, who he's likely to learn more about. And then initially, it was sensible not to leave until he has to. And then he learns about the princess, and as well as trying to get out the Death Star, he's like, oh, let's go and save her as well. I don't know who she is exactly. I never met her, but I still want to save her. And then, and yeah, he gets devastated about Obi-Wan, about losing Obi-Wan. And then yeah, and then he was like very up for piloting against the Death Star, and so on and so forth. So I feel like, because I think episode 4 is a shorter film, but I feel like there was probably like more explored with Luke. But at the same time, I think because I think a lot of people try and make an excuse by saying, oh, Rogue One doesn't have to have characters that are layered because their stories are ending soon anyway. To which I do disagree with. Like, I do agree with that it is like an approach where I feel like it's more like plot focused, and the film makes more of an effort to cover how everything is like A to B, but giving characters enough traits to distinguish between one another. Um, so yeah, I think it goes for that kind of approach, because when you like watch other like formal films like that, it does have that kind of approach. Like, what's the best example to go for? I I want to say like another war film, but I don't know what. Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, I think that's the kind of approach they're going for. Um, so yeah. And oh yeah, I remember an interesting video, and I forgot what the YouTuber is called. She also covered Atlantis, and she too has Rogue One as her favorite Star Wars film. And she talks about how Jin's um, character arc over the story structure doesn't quite tick all the boxes yet Cassian's does. And I can probably see where that's coming from, because I'll hopefully I'll put this up on screen, but I found a rather cool character arc template, just showing what they initially believe in, how it's challenged, how they test that belief and use that new belief to earn their goal. And when I was writing my books, I was getting that in line with the overall story structure, and I just remember like adding new scenes to my book to benefit these scenes, and in a way that progresses the story quite neatly. And yeah, you do get a very satisfying result, because not only do you allows you to create more very through line, but it just satisfies that structure, which is people subconsciously follow even if they don't notice it. A bit like a song, with how well structured it is and how you can see which stage you're at because of how well paced it is. So yeah, yeah, because I can't quite see how Nadine and Cassian, see if they do tick all of those boxes or not. But yeah, definitely a good number of them, that's for sure. Because there is like a good attempt with through line with the information they have and what decisions they make. And yeah, and despite referencing Cassian a lot of times already, because we see him, he has to make a lot of tricky choices, and it becomes quite skeptical and untrusting of the likes of Jin, and he's not like the biggest empire sorry, the biggest like rebel fan, especially with the way he was, because he was quite reluctant with the order at first, and he only like gets on with K2SO. We could probably infer that they'll probably, well, yeah, I think they would have had their own adventures, which will be proven in Andor season 2 in some way. But even if both Cassian and K2SO like trust each other, they are just like quite sensible with the goal, despite K2SO's quips. But it is just quipping at the right time, though, during like the journeys and that. And yeah, like Jin, Cassian, we already talk about similar upbringings and how they're both quite aware of the situation. Although, interestingly enough, when Jin was like willing to risk a life to save someone, Cassian was thinking in his own sensible way to not do something like that, because I think Cassian has this perspective that if his life is gone, then the mission is over. But I think with Jin, because while she was offered freedom, I think a part of her almost doesn't know what to live for, and so for her to to risk her life to save someone like that, yeah, I don't think she cares as much about her own life as much as Cassian's. Like Cassian's is more of a logistic thing, like said, if he's gone, the mission's done for. But yeah, Jin, yeah, well, not only is Jin like just tagged along with the rebels, as like a type of deal, but yeah, she's just very unenthusiastic about life at that kind of point where she yeah, is less careful with her own life, because I think well, it's up until because yeah, she doesn't really have that kind of moment again, because she has more of a goal to go for, something way more to live for. She's motivated by Galen's words, and yeah, and the only other time that her life is at risk is when they do get trapped on Scarif, and just despite an opportunity to get her freedom, or she probably would have wanted to help more, but I think at a certain point, yeah, she was just still happy to continue, even if they weren't going to make it, because they still, well, she still just wanted what Galen would have wanted, and yeah, that was enough to keep her going. Then anyway, that was a bit more about Jin. Anyway, back to Cassian. Yeah, and it's not, and with K2SE, and he tried to control the situation. I remember when Cassian, he tries to speak, probably just to help more of the situation. He probably had a good alibi he came up with, only to get smacked in the face. So there's that, and not to mention when he watches like Jim fighting, there's that moment of, oh well, she's probably quite good on her own and more defensive, and she takes down the forces relatively well, and there's no like hint of betrayal from Jin either. I think Cassian was probably looking out for that, especially when Jin was helping herself to a weapon on the ship, but yeah, you could see that over time, she doesn't have any like malicious intentions like that, because her own crimes were probably just to benefit Saul, not so much of herself. And yeah, so there's like a couple of T-Wicket bits and bobs, especially when Cassian, gives that nod to Jin, during that ambush earlier, well, in Jeddah City, and yeah, we also see Cassian break out the jail cell. So yeah, that's just like another part of his history that we not only see in the show, but just adds more to the kind of skill set he has, and he does it really quickly. So yeah, he wastes no time. And and then once he hears about the pilot being about, like, granted, I don't know why he wasn't like spotted earlier, but Brody was just sat there, well, probably traumatized by the creature and the other confrontation that the likes of Saul would have done. But yeah, once Cassian sees the pilot, because Baze was very like, oh no, it's someone from the Empire, so I'm going to get them for what they've done, because Chirrut and Baze, they're actually like quite similar to Jin and Cassian, because they're although, well, unlike Jin, yeah, because Jin almost like follows along with what Saul's been doing at a point where she isn't quite motivated for herself at first, but with Chirrut and Baze, they still try and be guardians, but I think over time they've probably been really tired of the Empire, probably keep an eye out for them, and I felt like they probably didn't have much to do. They probably have been trying to defend those in Jeddah City times before, and I think they would have also had to fight many stormtroopers before, whether it's that planet or maybe other worlds. They might have travelled. If they're referred to as Guardians of the Worlds, then they might have helped defend other places. Yeah, who knows? And it looks like it wasn't just them two. There was other people involved, but I feel like the two of them were just their own little duo, despite having some alliances. But yeah, regardless, yeah, because even because Cassian, he needed to communicate with the pilot for more answers and how to advance, but Baze was very rash and tried to attack him despite being on the other side of the cell, and yeah, and the pilot's kept alive mainly thanks to Cassian. He was the one who was like, oh, we're definitely bringing him with him, and bringing him with us. Sorry. And but yeah, and then we see Cassian, continuing to be smart, such as using light speed at a good time, knowing that they couldn't communicate until later on, because they're heading for Empire territory. And he also just likes to focus on the job in hand, telling K2SO to be quiet about the calculations. And then Cassian tries to maintain the order, but then he doesn't, and he does he's like very subtle about being like, oh, like you like stay around here, me and the pilot would go outside to see what's out there, and then he tells the pilot to go. And despite lacking context, they did explain a couple of reasons for why the pilot wasn't like overall suspicious, but yeah, regardless, Cassian does have like enough presence to be like, oh, I got the situation, and you do this and you do that. So he's a very effective captain as well. And yeah, then he decided to not go for the order, considering how Galen will be useful to the operation. Because if they get hold of Galen and bring him to the rebel base, then that would have really helped their favour. But obviously, that's not how it goes. And yeah, and he's very good with his weapons and very good with strategy, especially all across the Scarif planet. And him not being 100% of a rebel adds to his decision to just bring a couple of his own rebels to Scarif, and so yeah, and that's, and like I said, they're just he managed just a bond with a bond with Jin quite more so, because I think if you do like constantly good teamwork all across Scarif, then yeah, I think that's where you can have a positive outlook on kind of towards that other person, and for them to be almost like the last one standing in that battle, yeah, they have like their own moment to reflect, to see what they achieve, and they achieved what they wanted to achieve together, which is just really nice for them both. And looking back at that, yeah, I think Cassian is probably more characterized, almost like he's almost like a additional protagonist in his own way, but it's Jin who has more of a like an emotional connection to the story. It was Galen who's her dad that's involved, and she has more of a grudge against Krennic, assuming unless because Krennic's in the new season too, so unless he is not going to see Cassian, um, yeah, I guess we'll just wait and see about that. If they ever have like grudges against one another, there isn't like a hint of that in this film, but yeah, I guess we'll see what the show does. And despite Saul having a limited amount of screen time, I do quite like what we see in him. You definitely can see that he's been not only in the fight from early on, but with what how much of the fighting has done to him, and a bit like Krennic, he it goes the extra mile to not only reaffirm his position, but to intimidate others when needed. And although he does seem to be more like a natural leader, he doesn't have to worry about other higher ups. He, um, well, everyone knows he's in charge, and and yeah, and he does seem like a very efficient leader, and he definitely has his way of doing things. So because when I first seeing about the pilot, because it's the pilot handing himself over, isn't he? And they're all like wondering, oh, what's all of this? And they check the identification. Um, the pilot has a statement which is what he's talking about. Because I think did the pilot mention Galen as well? I think so. Let's just check what's been said in the meantime. And but yeah, in the meantime, yeah, we also see that Sori's very he does care for Jin quite a bit, especially with probably knew Galen and the mum for quite some time as well. Despite having a more of a work kind of relationship, just making sure the job's done and make sure each other are fine, and um, and yeah, even with the way Jin was very antagonistic towards it at one point, he does retain himself to like yeah, he does get like frustrated with her, but he does clarify everything calmly in that manner, and he also gets straight to the point by being like, oh, here's the message, and then at the end he is sensible enough to know that he doesn't want to let anyone down, and that he wouldn't make it to the ship when the Death Star fires his laser. And I think with all of these bits and bobs, I think it is someone where you could be like, oh, he's rather cool. I would like to learn more about him. And whilst that would have been cool, but um, I think that probably would have meant that the story would have had to pause on a certain part of the story structure in order for to him to learn about all sorts, and it also means that the Empire would have had to take longer to travel the Death Star and get the laser prepared. So I feel like the story would have had to pause quite a bit to achieve that. And hopefully, more of the Andor show will explore more about him, and not to mention if he's already a pre-established character, then we can see what he was like during those prequel cartoons. And um, and so yeah, I think it just would have been cool to see where he was at now. Uh, anyway, I'm just going to watch the scene in the meantime. What the pilot actually says to him, and oh yeah, and the way the he uses the creature to make sure the truth was the truth. Yeah, that too is like a sensible decision. It's like a very like gruesome way of clarifying information, um, but yeah, it just goes to show like what else he does if intruders enter his base. So yeah, I think the pilot does mention Galen. Okay, so at least that's clarified. Okay, and yeah, I think yeah, let's talk about the pilot. So yeah, he's definitely presented as someone who he's almost like the least battle ready person, especially when he was only a cargo pilot. But whether it was by his own choice or persuaded by Galen, he has a strong enough will to act on this, especially because he's almost like one of the main facilitators of this story. You know, him leaving is what got all of this, a lot of this started, and 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 just and he does try and maintain his composure. Especially when he's being like, oh, I demand to talk to Sora, and once he's there, he's like, here's all the information. I'm swearing telling the truth. And despite getting tested by the creature, if it was telling the truth, which of course he was, you can see. I think not only was he traumatized by the creature, but it's probably the first time he's been confronted by a faction like them. Because I think when he was with the Empire, I feel like despite how tense it was, I don't think he's not been treated like this. I think he had a fear of being mistreated, hence why. Because I think because despite how scared he was, I think when seeing like the sword, they could be like, oh yeah, finally, this is a empire kind of entity. I feel I can be, like treated well as I try and help them. But for him to be mistreated like that, I feel like that, yeah, just it made him on edge at first, and yeah, when he's sitting in this cell, he's just not knowing what to think, and also when he was seeing like the Death Star destruction outside, I think a part of him also like regretted joining the Empire in the first place, and you just seeing what he used to be involved with, and um, so yeah, there's that kind of sense to him, and so and yeah, then he simply helps the team, being like, oh, this is how to, where this place is. This is how to go through the planet, and helps Cassian through the planet, and then we can assume that he helped K2SO get hold of her new ship, and yeah, because at this point, despite I think yeah, I think he does connect with Cassian a bit, especially when Cassian, he's almost like the most friendliest person the pilot to get hold of, with the Cassian being like, oh yeah, are you the pilot who's done this? And then when he's like asking for his help with both the travelling, both on the ship or on foot, and then even K2SO gives the pilot a bit of confidence by being like, oh, thanks for helping them out, and welcome to the rebels. So I think it just helps with the pilot's confidence to be like, oh yeah, so yeah, I think that yeah, I'm definitely for this team now. Yeah, I think that's um, yeah, I think yeah, because he has like a bit of a glee on his face when he was like, oh, he just very like appreciative of K2SO's comment, and I think he's just happy that he's doing something beneficial. And then also like Jin, he doesn't get a word in at all, and not treated very well in the in the meeting. And then of course he easily joins Cassian and Jin to Scarif, and then for a lot of the time, despite being mostly in the same area, he does a lot of useful things, and once again he has the knowledge, and him being around also helps go through the gate as well. And also, yeah, despite being like timid for a lot of the time, he does gain a lot more his own strength, especially when he's like trying to communicate with Admiral Radis. He does have that sense of frustration, but at the same time he's very assertive, and his brain is going very quickly, has all of that knowledge, and he's like, oh yeah, this is what to do and this is what to do. So he's very quick on his feet like that. And I feel like yeah, there is like actually no, because yeah, I think when he was when he had a bag on his head, he definitely was just saying all sorts to make sure he helps himself. But I feel but yeah, it goes from him constantly chatting to help himself whilst helping the cause. But when he's on the rebel side trying to talk to those above, yeah, he's very assertive, and you could definitely take him more seriously. And so yeah, and he also yeah, when just running through all of those events, yeah, he's definitely less characterized, because yeah, I feel like there would have been like a couple of steps needed to for him to, not only have more events of how he gains more confidence, but almost like more of earning that switch to the other side almost. Because he does, very simple actions like help the others leave the planet as they get hold of the ship. Like that's like a big deal. But I think he is just treated as like an important character, with what he can do for the plot in his own reasonable ways. Um, and it is like characterized enough, but he's not. I think he has like a much smaller arc compared to the others. He's someone who gains confidence over time, and he like faces the battle despite being less battle ready. So there is definitely enough for a minor character. Like I said, I would have probably liked a couple more moments if he was to have like a smaller arc of his own. But yeah, I like him. He's you could definitely yeah, once again, he's not devoid of traits. And I think we'll go on to K2SO next. I can't believe how long this conclusion that is. And yeah, he's simply the comic relief, and he does help with all sorts, such as some of the piloting, some of the use of technology, whether it's the map of the building or finding out about the X-wing fleet, and and yeah, I think because of him being a droid, not that he did lack personality, but he doesn't really, because unlike the other characters, there's no like weight of him being like, gone through all of those traumatic experiences. He's definitely not like that. It just looks like with his reprogramming, he does take the situation seriously, but there's nothing like bringing him down. He's just happily equipping when the time is right. He's very outspoken from time to time. Kind of opinionated and quite sarcastic, and so yeah. Yeah, and to mention the procedure of him, really pulled up, because I really thought that was like a practical thing, but obviously not. And yeah, there's just a whole heap of funny lines as well, almost like the audience in some way, from time to time, and yeah, we can see that despite being smart in some areas, he's definitely inexperienced in other ways, because we see him struggle with confronting stormtroopers by being like, oh yeah, these are prisoners, I'm just going to take them there. And then when the stormtroopers are like, wait, hang on, you don't seem quite right. And he was like, I beg your pardon. So there's moments like that. So even if he loses his well, even if he like loses to his own alibi, he doesn't like lose lose his composure. But you're not to mention, because I don't remember what the K2SO was like in the first season, the one that got casting him up against the wall. And he might have said like a couple of words, so they're definitely established to speak, except he's more informal. I guess it just makes you wonder how this programming works. Like, I guess it's maybe to make them less sinister if, oh yeah, of course, because if Cassie's thrown up against the wall, then yeah, they must have like, they probably would have been well built to handle any nuisances outside of the empire. So I think there would have been built. Yeah, sorry, just got interrupted then. So yeah, there is like you can see how he would be adapted, to use his strength from time to time. Like, granted, he's not like a tank where he has to use super strength all the time, but there are like moments, like being able to knock out foes or swing about stormtroopers, and also despite him destroying himself, he was strong enough to shut down the console by smacking himself into it. And also the amount of gunshots he sustained as well. He is definitely a strong enough droid, but because as much as I really like the tank characters of a team, I think K2SO is almost like a refreshing one by having he has his limits with not only what he can do, but how much he can take as well, because with all of those gunshots, he was like struggling to stand, and his speaking wasn't going so great as well. And so yeah, he does have like a simpler role, but he is like extremely memorable because of all of those lines and quips, and the film is just I think he really adds to a whole lot to the film. He's like a comedic relief that's done really well because I don't mind Jar Jar even if he is like over the top from time to time, and I think he still kind of suits with what kind of film it's going for because the Phantom Menace is mostly like a very um um like what do you call it? Not jovial, but it is lighter in tone. From time to time, but with um so yeah, when you see the other creatures, such as the like the ruler, and also just seeing how the battle droids act. So that's how Jar Jar almost like suits the Phantom Menace in that way. But you with K2SO, however, because he is like expressive but not over the top, and it still suits the film, Rogue One being more um despite being a quite a more formal and serious film. So yeah, so it still feels natural. The jokes like placed uh, at sensible times, and yeah, the way he just communicates with your characters as well. Um, because because despite questioning and Cassian, he still listens to him and still obeys his instructions, and and he's very efficient with the information he's given. And then he was skeptical at Jin at first, and then he has like some moments of sarcasm around her, and and he doesn't really interact with the other three as much, other than giving the pilot some confidence, and also adding to Chirrut's theory by being like, oh, I did see what a sniper was like. So there's like those dull moments where he tends to be helpful. So yeah, he definitely knows where to be helpful as well. He's not constantly throwing jokes. Once again, it's just well timed. And then then on to Trut and Baze, and Trut, I think he's a bit more characterized because out of that duo, he's one with more screen time and more moments, and yeah, a bit more traits to him. Like firstly, for him to trust the Force in the manner he does, yeah, it is a very interesting character concept, which I really enjoy. And yeah, even I'm just coincidentally just watching him beating up the stormtroopers. He can he puts his trust in the Force that much, and he knows how to fight with it well. And even with that massive weapon he has, he knows how to dodge. He knows how to fire at a good time, especially with the TIE fighter going into the turret. And he sends the AT-ATs ahead of time, and he also goes through the laser fire, and so yeah, he has a lot of he performs a lot of the most impressive feats in the film, which it makes him like the cool one. But at the same time, he's very spiritual, and he acts quite jovial a lot of the time. I think he's like someone who tries to have like a positive outlook, um, and yeah, he has quite a bit of wisdom in him from time to time, and there's moments where if he does joke about a bit, just adding to the somewhat fun personality he has, but a lot of the time he does concentrate on the situation a lot, whether it's in battle or when he pays attention to the surroundings on the ships, and wondering about Andor at one point, and um, and yeah, and he seems to be a good, like a big strategist. He comes out at a good time as well. Just oh no, my tablet's nearly dead. So yeah, he does. Hang on, let me just turn the brightness down. There you go. So yeah, like similar to K2SO, he only jokes about if necessary, but at the same time, I think I guess he could. There was times where he was like similar to Baze, where he wants to do something more beneficial, because with Jeddah City gone, To which I just suddenly noticed maybe I think there could have been maybe more of a moment of um, Chirrut and Baze being a bit sad that Jeddah City's gone. Like maybe I think that could have been nice for both of them. But regardless, Chirrut also kind of makes himself like the leader at times, especially when he's walking out to the ship and he's like, oh, Baze, I got you, you're going to help you, aren't you? And then Baze just like, oh, if I must, but they're like a good dynamic here. They always look out for one another. They help for each other's goals. They're good to communicate with one another during battle, especially with the AT-ATs coming about. And so I think he too doesn't have a lot of screen time. But once again, there's definitely a lot of you know you can see how he stands out, and like I said, he does have like a lot of grand moments in the film, which makes him stand out in that way. And Baze also has like a couple of impressive feats, like the way he has like a streak of troopers he takes down because of the massive gun he has. That I find quite satisfying. Like I said, he's occasionally rash at some times, and he likes to protect Chirrut, and he makes fun of the Force from time to time. He's like one of those characters not really believing in it, but I think over time he does we'll probably see more of what with what not only with what Chirrut can do, but also just seeing how it's probably helped them so far and how much it's helped him. And as Chirrut slowly goes, Baze like, oh, as long as I live, I'll go and continue to trust in the Force. As long as I continue. And he's definitely like the most like battle ready person, and the most heavy-handed, and considering how old both of them are, they're both well experienced as well. So but I think Baze is the I think he's the one I would say I can see the least about compared to the others. But other than that, he does have a lot of cool moments. I do like him quite a lot. And I think that's all I can say really. I covered the main cast, and you can see how it obeys the the pre-established style, and and it just makes Star Wars like really cool again. And because if you're wondering, my introduction to Star Wars was actually the Lego game of the original trilogy on my DS. So not the classic Xbox or PlayStation version. No, it was on the DS, where it has been taken a lot nowadays. But to like listen to the music and admiring like the look and the feel, and you still have like a sense of scale of the battles occasionally, because I did like the size of a lot of the levels, and it is just nice and straightforward. It's like despite being like futuristic, it's aged at the same time, and I do get that not only that feeling with Rogue One, but it it's just it is just very familiar, reminiscent, and quite nostalgic. And because I do just because I do enjoy as much as possible with any of the films and shows I watch. Even like I said, if a lot of them have been hit or miss, to at least see where the ideas are coming from, to see if they actually work or not. But I think with Rogue One, it just feels like all of their check boxes have been done, and they've got characters that explore different concepts. Whether it's that they're trusting the Force, or having characters with their own their own grey areas, and just seeing more about how the Empire oversee everything, and just seeing a lot of familiar faces and seeing how it expands from there. And the Andor show continues to do that, and just extremely cool. Like, granted, a bit like Andor, but it does like lightsabers and aliens, but well, we still see a whole heap of alien races in Rogue One, and you have the Darth Vader scene at least. So there is like those moments as well, which really have those kind of yeah, it just feels like a film with like a lot of weight. When I watch Rogue One, or you know but I guess it's focused on that one. I just always reminded of what makes Star Wars so special in the first place. Just their classic conflict, and just seeing how it's explored, and how a modern filmmaker makes just seeing what as a collection of older films would have looked like in the modern era. Yeah, it just has that kind of um, feel to it. Um, so yeah, I think all of that explains why this is my favorite film, Star Wars film anyway. And yeah, we have spotted a load of like a couple of gaps, a couple of things that could be improved, and I think I think those who understand the likes of strategy and technology more better than I've done, maybe they might point out a couple of more bits and bobs, or other improvements they could suggest, or other ways to kind of make the Death Star plan scheme like more interesting. But I'm not sure. I just feel like with only a good few improvements, yeah, it definitely would be stronger. But I feel like it's already extremely well done, and we're not just like paying attention to spot all of these details. I just don't know how people could say, oh, it's boring, it's dull. It's definitely not better than a lot of the stuff, and I just really can't get to that conclusion, Nick, because it does. Yeah, it was just something that was made with a lot of care, and I just do hope these creators do more of this fictional universes, because they've earned it, and they know what to do with the fiction material. And not to mention, I think, yeah, did Gareth Edwards say something like how Rogue One was, he wanted to please George Lucas first, especially with what George would have wanted if making a film like this, just seeing what can be added in the story, and what new elements to add to make it more nuanced, and explore a bit more. And yeah, I can see George being well impressed. I'm quite curious to see what his reaction is. And yeah, but the film may have been reshot, and sorry, yeah, maybe reshot. And yeah, who knows what could have been in those shots, maybe extra details. And I've heard about the film being lightened up a bit, because I think it was going to be like even more of a war film in some way, but we still at least get that aspect there. And despite the request from the likes of Kathleen or Disney, and what the reshoots were doing, yeah, I think it's managed to come out of it quite well, as far as I can see. Yeah, just connecting all the dots and seeing all the character moments, and how they all work together despite only meeting each other briefly. Yeah, it's a very satisfying tale. And yeah, I'll start right there. So yeah, do point out anything I've got wrong, or if any of my conclusions aren't that great, or if I'm correct on anything. And like I said, I think I would like to add like a section of what season 2 probably does for this film. I could have watched this film after Andor season 2, but I think not only is season 1 almost like its own story, which might carry over, but yeah, I think it will just benefit more of its own story, rather than focusing on how it can do more for Rogue One. But I think regardless, after see more of K2SO and Krennic and the Death Star, I think it will definitely add some more questions of not only this film, but more of the Star Wars universe, which yeah, I think we'll be looking forward to. So yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, like I said, yeah, just point out what season 2 does for this film. And yeah, it's just a very easy one to revisit, isn't it? It's not only familiar, but you could just see how it is placed very well. And yeah, I just would like to see more of this, really, in terms of Star Wars. So yeah, I'll start right there, and I'll see you later.